Welcome back to another FPL reaction stream. We're looking ahead to Game Week 12 already, and we're entering the final international break of the calendar year. Game Week 11 has just completed following Man City's 3-0 win over Liverpool, which has effectively ruled out the Reds from the title race. It is now, it seems to be, between Arsenal and Manchester City, and we'll talk about that throughout the stream and my performance. Ultimately, it is a green arrow, and in terms of my transfer plans and all the finer details, they'll be found in my team selection. The same goes for different bits and bobs like the transfer tips, which will be my recommendations for players to buy, hold, sell and skip, and there might even be some players to add to the watch list or 1 week punts. There's also going to be a wildcard squad for Game Week 12, and that's going to be a very good time to use that chip. And ultimately, for those that still have the chip left, I think Game Week 12 or 13 is the best time to use it. And which one is better? I'll start the discussions in this stream and then build upon them in my future videos. And also keep your eyes peeled for Matchday 5 content for UCL Fantasy after the international break. So that'll be in a couple of weeks' time, of course. But let's delve straight into your questions and comments as always. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We hit 37k on YouTube only on Tuesday during the UCL Fantasy deadline stream. And the goal is to get to 38k by the end of the month. And going into 2026, 40,000 will be the next big goal. Also join my Discord server. We're trying to get to 1,000 members on that. There's also my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can join as a patron or channel member. Further access to my videos, proud to comments, amongst many other perks. And for those that have signed up, you always get videos hours in advance and sometimes even days in advance, particularly when things are a bit quieter and calmer during an international break, for example. So that will be one of the main benefits, of course, for signing up. So let's start off with the first question or comment by FPL Kevy. Hey buddy, Captain Bowen, not smart, on course for the average or slight green somehow. Also Van Dijk owner, so pretty good with his header. Anyways, Q, 12 easy messages. Yeah, you called it. I'm not even sure if he replied to you, but I saw that as I was setting things up. Good old easy, right? And of course, he will be bullish after Chelsea's win, but you've been a bit unfortunate this week because Walker Peters was just... wow, he showed such desire to get to that goal. And yeah, Jarrod Bowen looked pissed. I saw when the West Ham players were celebrating, Walker Peters is there just like going to the corner flag, and Bowen does not look happy, but you kind of understand it from his view. As for Van Dijk, I have to say, a bit contentious, that goal being disallowed. The same goes for the penalty Man City were awarded, which Erling Haaland missed anyway. But yeah, those two decisions were definitely against Liverpool today, and I'm not sure if they were the correct ones. Saka saving me. I've been saying it for some time. I'm not trying to say I'm the Nostradamus or anything, but I had a good feeling about Saka against Sunderland, Tottenham and Chelsea. So we'll see how he does in those London derbies. But I think Arsenal had some encouraging signs in the second half yesterday. The big concern there was the defence. I think very uncharacteristically, the Gunners just really conceded cheap goals and also a few opportunities. Ultimately, Arsenal should have won the game, and they had plenty of opportunities to make it a third or fourth, and it's a massive, chance missed in general for the title race. But it's still very early on. They've got a 4-point lead. They're ahead of the rest, and ultimately only Man City are the ones to really think about. And if Erling Haaland gets injured, I'm not too concerned. Twan says, hi Dylan, for next week, who do I play? Caicedo, Mukiele and Dye. Yeah, difficult one. Caicedo has the best fixture against Burnley away, but that isn't necessarily the best thing for Caicedo. He actually does better in the so-called difficult games where he's got more DEFCON potential, but I'd probably stick with Ndai. And as for any Sunderland defender, and I'm seeing people buy Xhaka and Ballard, go ahead. If you want to get blanks and blanks, their upcoming fixtures aren't particularly great, so I wouldn't really expect too much, but they have been very solid this season. Only 1 defeat so far, and they haven't lost a single game at the Stadium of Light, but it's certainly Ndai for me. What a game week. Maybe we need that 2-week break from FPL. We always say this, though, and we're always back, at least in most situations. Time to clean up the mess in your team, Dylan. I don't see many problems, though. Obviously, Dan Burn is now suspended after getting that red card. He was always going to be third on my bench anyway against Man City, but I'll be honest, I don't have to wildcard in Game Week 12 necessarily. I could just roll again, then wildcard in 13, and then have free transfers going into Game Week 14. So that's something I'm considering, but yeah, there are definitely a few concerns. Some underperforming players like Antoine Semenyo, who missed a penalty today. Erling Haaland also missed one, but he's never going to go anywhere. Unfortunately, he's a permanent captain, it seems, and he's going to be in my team for the rest of the season. United trying to negotiate with Cameroon for Mbeumo to play Game Week 16 and 17. Yeah, I saw that, but I'd still probably bring in Mbeumo anyway on the wild card because ultimately we get 5 free transfers in Game Week 16 regardless. I think Cameroon will let play Mbeumo in 16 and not in 17. Well, it's all about negotiations, right? But I do find it strange, for AFCON to be one of the only major international tournaments to be in the middle of the season. So it really should be in the summer because, I mean, how are you having these discussions? Like, for such an important tournament, for Mbuma to potentially miss the first game for Cameroon because he's playing for United, like, it's not even the best there. I know he's a professional, but there could be an element of some of these players who have to play another game for their club before going with their countries. They might be a bit distracted. That is an element of the game that we're not going to factor too much into our thinking when building our FPL teams, but it is a real possibility, especially with long travel and risky injury with AFCON nearby. And yes, Igor Thiago, Andre pick. By the way, I put him in my latest wildcard video, and people said no, he's got terrible fixtures. What are we saying now? Let me know. Great weekend. Not really, but yeah, City, very well-deserved winners. I think Liverpool just were never in it, and they're not going to win the title. I think that's fair to say. If you lose 5 games by November, you've got no chance. Now, to be fair, after the start City had, people would have had the same sort of perception about them because they had, 2 losses out of the first 3-4 game weeks, but yeah, City are back on track, but as I mentioned before, I think an injury to Haaland, and ultimately City are in a title race because of Guardiola and Haaland, but yeah, if the Norwegian robot gets injured, I just don't really see who scores goals consistently. They can spread it around like they did today, and also Dortmund, but yeah, they still depend too much on Haaland for goals, and yeah, I have to say, that is probably going to be the decider between Arsenal and City in terms of injuries and how both managers manage the situation. Yeah, a few people would have had more than 50 points. I think I saw a few in the live chat. I think Zero said it. Keane saved my game week. Yeah, big return for him. He also had an assist, but it was ruled off for, it was disallowed. The goal was disallowed, so he didn't get the assist, but it didn't really matter because shortly afterwards he scored. 45 all out. Somehow I got a green, only just. Yeah, I got the exact same score. Also a green arrow by around 100,000 places. I'll take it because it was a frustrating week, to say the least. Wish I could forget that performance against City. You got to change your name now. Yeah, Liverpool are finished, unfortunately for you. Burn, Red, Semenyo, Haaland missing penalty. Yeah, all of them in my FPL team. Luckily, I benched and Burn, but both Gabriel and Timber got 1-pointers, so it's really not much of a difference anyway. 46 points somehow mainly because of Hotel Thiago. Well, at least you had one player carrying you, and Igor Thiago with that brace. Late daggers there for Newcastle. Who to bring in instead of Gakpo? The same options I've been talking about. Now, Ismail Assar is so threatening all the time. Good price tag. Great fixtures on paper, but he scores that brace in the Conference League when no one gives a crap. And in FPL, he just blanks, and unfortunately blanks. But I'd still recommend him. I think the returns will come if he continues this level of performance. I think Enzo Fernandez looks good for this week, but I wouldn't buy him long term. Moises Caicedo is just a DEFCON player. He can be your 5th midfielder. Declan Rice is still one of my favourite midfielders in general. So it just depends on your price tag. If you got enough to go to Mbeumo, that is my top recommendation, but I'm not sure what funds you're working with. I'm not sure about keeping Gakpo. I mean, we could see him reintroduced into the starting 11 for the easier games, but the minutes are already a concern. Against Real Madrid and Man City, 2 massive games, it was Florian Wirtz playing in his position. And with Alexander Isak also in contention, and he's going to be ready to start games fairly soon. We could even see Ekitike Isak play up front together, or one of them being shifted to the left-hand side. So I just don't really like Cody Gakpo. I sold him a few weeks ago at the right time, and I'm happy I did so. Yeah, both Semenyo and Haller missing a penalty. What an amazing game week. But the good thing is they're both templates. So I know Semenyo's ownership is going down a little bit, and some people even benched him against Villa. But yeah, if I look at my possible transfers for Game Week 11, so just before the deadline closed, I was very, very close to getting Marino for Rangers. I had just enough money to make that transfer, and I probably would have benched Voltemada, but you know, if I'm kind of like looking back on it, yeah, you bench Semenyo, you get Marino, you get 5 points from it. Not a massive gain, but every little helps. I'm just happy I rolled the transfer, though, in the end. I think that was the right call for me. But yeah, with Semenyo and Haaland, the good thing about both of them missing a penalty is that they're still very template. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Van Dijk robbed off a goal. I agree. About time Salah got a benching. Well, he has in the Champions League against Frankfurt, right? And he came on and missed a chance. Then some Liverpool fans were sending him abuse, which is ridiculous, by the way. Salah has been poor this season, but have they forgotten what he did last year? Welcome, Jamie, the birthday boy. So yeah, decent week for you in FPL as well. I was recommending benching O'Reilly, but yeah, he's the one who made the difference in our head-to-head game, so fair play. Van Dijk's goal, I don't know what happened to the chat. Let me just get it up. Should have been counted. Utter woke nonsense. Agreed. And that could have changed the game completely, even though City were the better team by that stage. I think it could have been more competitive, and at 1-1, anything's possible. And I think Arsenal fans would have been loving it. But there you go. It is what it is. Bring on City. Come on. Let's see what happens. 2 free transfers. Time has come for Bowen to go, as well as Reinders. Any advice who for? Thinking Thiago, Joao Pedro for Bowen. I'd rather go for Thiago. He's cheaper on penalties. And to be fair, Joao Pedro would be one of the main contenders for Chelsea when Cole Palmer isn't on the pitch. But yeah, apart from Burnley away, look, Joao Pedro did well against Arsenal last season, but I think he benefited a lot from certain calls like the Rice red card and the ridiculous penalty they gave against Saliba. Yeah, with Joao Pedro, very inconsistent. I'd rather go for Igor Thiago personally. I'm not sure about Reinders. Money, not an issue. I think Reinders is a sell. I mean, he's been benched in the last 2 Premier League games, and the twat scores, or should I say, gets a brace of assists in UCL Fantasy. But the less said about that, the better. Yeah, Gay was on crutches and he couldn't walk in the last couple of days. Oliver Glasner said this, I think, in his pre-match interview. So, yeah, that is the main reason why. And he said that he probably won't be available for selection for England. And surely Thomas Tuchel will be reasonable enough to understand that and not force him to play meaningless games. Should I buy Salah and Dewsbury Hall or Bruno and Saka? As a duo, I'd rather go for Bruno and Saka. Now, Dewsbury Hall got a return against Fulham, but yeah, I see the appeal because Salah's got great fixtures. I think there will be some good returns there, but I think Bruno and Saka is just a better duo overall. Yeah, exactly that 0-0. Gay is injured, but he should be back for Gameweek 12. I don't think it's a long-term issue. 53 points, but I forgot to captain Saka before deadline instead of Gabriel, and I lost so many points, and Gay didn't even play. Yeah, still decent though, 53 points. I did have Saka ranked higher, by the way, than Gabriel. I told people, for some reason, I predicted 2-0 Arsenal, but there was something in the back of my mind that I just preferred Saka as a captaincy option over Gabriel. I thought there is a chance Arsenal concede a goal. For them to concede 2 is embarrassing, in my opinion. I know Sunderland are a decent team, but yeah, I think with Arsenal's recent defensive prowess and their consistency, the mistakes they made from Raya and the defensive line are just not good enough. And you can't do that very often, because if you do it even just once in a game, you're going to get punished. But yeah, not too shabby though in the end. Just the captaincy that didn't go well for you. At least Haaland missed a penalty and only got 4 points in the end. It's not the end of the world. Well, yeah, I covered that, Faris. I know you said this before I answered the question, but it's something that happened in the build-up to the game, and I think it was in the last 2-3 days. I think he took like a whack towards the end of the game on Thursday in the Europa Conference League, but Oliver Glasner didn't give much away in his post-match interview, so it's probably something that developed on the Friday and Saturday. 38 points started Gay, auto sub for Burn, shocking week. Yeah, like it's literally no difference. If Dan Burn also missed out, yeah, it's literally the same outcome. It's kind of a shame because Dan Burn got DEFCON. That kind of saved you a little bit. Otherwise, you would have had minus points from him. Bench boost this week got me 13 points. I wish I got 13 points from my bench boost. Luckily, I made the stack to Anderson move or it would have been the worst. Yeah, he took the penalty, which I didn't expect at all. So fair play. Gibbs White missed a penalty on Thursday against Sturm Graz. So no surprises that they changed the penalty taker, but I didn't expect it to be Elliot Anderson, of all people. Reinders not even getting off the bench. Yeah, look, I was always looking at selling Reinders even this week for Marino. That would have been a decent one-week punt, but because I would have benched probably Walter Marda, yeah, I wouldn't have gained any points from that transfer based on my, you know, consequential team selection headache and stuff. Hi, Dylan. I got James what to do. Well, look, I said this after I saw him start against Karabag, and he had an absolute stinker and hook, by the way. Yeah, when I made the predicted lineup for Chelsea, I didn't have him in it. And it's actually one of the rare times I got Chelsea's 11 spot on this season. So it's looking good when it comes to my predictions, but I'm not too surprised that James didn't start against Wolves. I think it's worth keeping him for the next couple of weeks, reassessing. If you're not wildcarding in Gameweek 12 or 13, then I'd keep James until the Arsenal game and then sell. But yeah, with Burnley, it's hard for me to say, is he going to start or not, because that's a few weeks away and James is so injury prone. But as things stand, I would lean towards yes, he will start that match. 50 points on Green Arrow from 12k to 5.8. Yeah, I think you know the answer to that question, Hassan. I think that's an element of gloating, if anything. Hello, Dylan, 58 points. Keane, Richard, Saka genuinely saved me. Yeah, 58 points is a good score and some big returns there. Michael Keane obviously with the goal. Saka 12-pointer and he scored DEFCON again. just like he did against Fulham. So I think Saka could be quite underrated when it comes to DEFCON, but ultimately with him, you want goals and assists on a regular basis. Yeah, this is what I mean now. So Dryhill says, is Saka a good pick after the break? I mean, before that Sunderland game, people are saying, oh, Saka's awful. He's not worth the money. And I understood it because he wasn't being consistent enough. But yeah, I've been saying this before the deadline. I think Saka's worth holding on to for those that have him. And it just depends on your situation, right? Mbeumo would be a preference of mine because of the price tag, but Bukayo Saka can certainly make the difference against Chelsea and Tottenham coming up next. So yeah, Saka's a decent pick after the international break. He's not offering enough consistency yet in terms of the goal contributions to justify the 10.1 million price tag, but when it comes to midfielders, he'll still be right up there. So yeah, he's a good pick. That's basically the short end of it. 4.2 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. So yeah, it just depends who you're selling really, but I prefer him over most midfielders. Liverpool goal should have stood, and I'm not a Pool fan. Yep, I covered it towards the beginning. Ultimately, it would have benefited Arsenal, but it's the right call as well. And then you see the penalty that City got, then you wonder why Gyökeres against Newcastle didn't get it after a VAR review, but whatever. It is what it is, right? I have 2 free transfers. Is it worth doing Voltemada to Thiago and Van de Ven to Reece James? I would not be buying Reece James at this point. James was only a punt for the next week or so until, you know, people wildcard in 12 or 13 essentially, and I wouldn't be buying James. He is an upgrade on Van de Ven simply because of fixtures, but I wouldn't go for him. The best mid-price to premium defenders include Gabriel, Timber, Munoz. Other Palace defenders also apply to that conversation, like Richards. I still like Gay. He should be back for Gameweek 12. And Lacroix, but not Reece James for me. Saka, Borro to Van Dijk and Gakpo, Szoboszlai. I would rather go for Szoboszlai, to be honest. He has been Liverpool's best player this season. Gakpo is not a certain starter, especially with Isak back in the mix. Wirtz has been playing on the left in the last 2 games. I like the Borro to Van Dijk move, but not Saka to a Liverpool midfielder, personally. I don't like that. Lucky I forgot to change captaincy from Saka to Haaland. Yeah, look, sometimes in FPL and these games in general, you can get lucky by forgetting to do something. Or forgetting to do a transfer, make a substitution, the bench order, whatever it is, it can sometimes lead to a bit of luck. But conversely, it can go the other way. So you got to enjoy the rough or the smooth, you know. Well, maybe not enjoy the rough, but enjoy the good moments when they come, because you don't always get lucky. First game, a double Arsenal and Diouf bench, Lacroix and Mukiele, enough said. Yeah, but I did say this before, for people who just say, oh, are Arsenal going to, keep a clean sheet for the rest of the time? Well, no, they're not, as good as they are defensively. And I felt like the best time to double or triple up has already gone by. They've already kept 8 consecutive clean sheets. So when they concede that first goal, it's going to be a dagger and it's going to hurt more than, it usually would do. But look, I still think there's a great reason to go for double Arsenal defense. It's the only defense worth covering in that sort of manner. But in terms of a triple up, especially with Tottenham and Chelsea up next, and I would expect Arsenal to beat both of them, it's not a guaranteed clean sheet. So yeah, stick with the Arsenal double up, but I wouldn't be tripling up on the defense anytime soon. And I've always said it from the beginning, by the way, even when they were churning out clean sheets and wins, for fun. My preference is a double up defensively and 1 midfielder or forward. And hopefully Gyökeres is back after the international break. I think he was badly missed. I was going to bring in Van Dijk, but is Ruben Dias an underrated pick at the moment? Only 5.5 million with good upcoming fixtures and certain for minutes. I still think City aren't the greatest defensively, to be honest. And Ruben Dias this season has not been benched, but that was the case in the last couple of seasons, quite often actually. So I'm still a bit mindful. And as we enter the Christmas period, any Man City asset bar Haaland is going to be a rotation risk. So take with a pinch of salt. Even Cherky, the man on the thumbnail, who didn't get any goal contributions today, I still think he's better than Doku and most Man City assets. But yeah, whoever you go for from City, just be prepared for rotation. Even Ruben Dias, I'm still going to say Arsenal defenders are better, and the same goes for Munoz. They're my favourite premium options in that defensive line. Roku says I captained Cucurella and benched Haaland, but he came on for Gay anyways. I'm not even going to comment on that. That's crazy. 58 points overall with 12 points from bench boost. Yeah, that's a decent score from the bench in a single game week. I mean, you're always hoping for 15 plus, but I'll be honest, I wish I had 12 from my bench boost last week, but it is what it is. Nice rank rise as well. 65 points bench boost of Keane. Yeah, that single-handedly saved your bench boost, and that's a good score for this week. What do you think of Bruno Guimaraes? Quality player, but I'm not so sure about him as an FPL asset when compared to Ismaila Sarr, Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice, Ndai, Caicedo, all these midfielders I've talked about recently, even Minter, but he's a decent option. I have a kind of unique question, and you kind of need to see my team to understand it. Could I post my team underneath your most recent post along with my question and you answer it? Possibly, but I'll be honest, because I'm going to go through some different questions in the interim, I might forget by that stage, so you need to remind me in the next comment. But yeah, what post are you going to, like what platform are we talking about? YouTube, Twitter? Let me know so I know where to look. Captain Saka, fair play. I was actually quite bullish on the Saka captaincy this week, although I was more bullish against Burnley, and he missed some big chances. Should I sell Semenyo for Mbumo? The thing is, Semenyo has good fixtures now, and I know it's a far away, and we get 5 transfers in Gameweek 16 anyway, but what you need to bear in mind is that Semenyo will stay with Bournemouth during AFCON because Ghana didn't qualify, whilst Mbumo will go in either Gameweek 16, 17, or 18 because United are trying to negotiate with Cameroon as covered towards the beginning of this stream, but difficult to say. I think Mbumo is the better pick right now. I'm not going to deny that, but having said that, I still think Semenyo could still be a decent option. As things stand, I'm going to say yes, but don't be surprised to see Semenyo return fairly soon. Newcastle 2 points off the relegation zone. How in the mud? Yeah, but, on Twitter, I was seeing Newcastle fans bantering Arsenal, even though it's Sunderland that, got a result. That's kind of crazy, but yeah. I mean, Newcastle have been good in the Champions League, but very poor in the Prem, and if they don't improve soon, you know how football is. Even Eddie Howe, with all the credit he has in the bank, I don't think he's quite there yet. I think probably by the end of the year, if things don't dramatically, maybe not dramatically, but if they don't improve and they find a bit of consistency and form in this division, then questions could be asked. Had a green arrow of a -20, now 2.5 million. Team value currently 13.9 million. Wow. I'm guessing that's 103.9 million. Yeah, really good team value. -20 is crazy, but you got a green arrow, so enjoy it. Don't take hits that often, though, in terms of like -20s and that, because that's not sustainable. Grandpa says, I took a gamble on my captain and it failed badly. Ahmad on my bench, swapped Donnarumma for Raya. FPL hates me. Yeah, look, Raya is a much better option than Donnarumma long term. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Naturally, when you're investing in a team that have kept 8 consecutive clean sheets, they haven't conceded in the whole month of October. They're not always going to do that as good as they are defensively. So that is still the right decision long term, but it backfired massively this week. And that's why typically I say don't make goalkeeper transfers if possible and save them for the wild card. And then ideally you just have a set and forget option for the rest of the season or until your next wild card in the second half of the campaign. But yeah, Ahmad on the bench is a bit disappointing. He got that assist for Mbumo. And I'm not sure who you captained. Maybe it was Gabriel or something like that. But yeah, not many standouts for the captaincy again, and that's what I kind of come down to. If I bought Saka, and I said this in my deadline stream, I would have maybe captained him just because, well, he's an Arsenal player, and to go for something a little bit different. I'm kind of bored out of my mind just going for Erling Haaland every single week, to be honest, but it is what it is. So I know FPL can feel that like that sometimes, where you go for something different and it backfires, or you make a logical decision and bring Raya and you also lose out on points, but it won't always be like that. Trick says 59 points, that's really good. Liberty says Semenyo, Sarr, Senesi, Bowen, Caicedo out with my 5 free transfers. For who? And I'll be honest, I think 2 of those, maybe even 3, are worth keeping. I understand Bowen, he might even return the next game, but he's a clear sell for me. I think the other 4 are still pretty good FPL assets. I sold Gyökeres for Welbeck, should have gone for Thiago. Look, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about Welbeck being a decent option, but my preference has always been Thiago. Now, the red card obviously changed things big time. If Dan Burn didn't get sent off, maybe Thiago would have blanked, but it is what it is, right? I think Welbeck is a good option, but Thiago's better. Play Thiago at home, bench away is the core. Look, the only game I look at where Thiago's benchable is Arsenal, but we even saw Brobby, who was absolute crap, by the way. He scored, so anything's possible in life. So, yeah, I think with Thiago, generally speaking, you do start him. I got 32 points with Semenyo and Haaland both missing penalties. Yeah, not a good score, unfortunately. A lot of us would have had Semenyo and Haaland, but yeah, Haaland still scored. That's not really a big deal if you captain him, to be fair. If you didn't captain him, that actually might be a good thing. A blessing in disguise that Haaland missed a penalty because of effective ownership, but I'm guessing you captain him. Doku looked fire, but his first goal in 24 Premier League appearances. Do not fall for the trap. 100%. I said he's a crap finisher, and then I know a Man City fan, he was saying, oh, thanks for the reverse jinx and humbly and stuff, but come on, he's still a crap finisher. Let's not try to, shift the goalposts or rewrite history here. Doku is not a good finisher. His end product is shit, but he is a decent player, and he is one of the best dribblers in the league, that's for sure. AFCON always played in the start of the year for a long time. I know that, but I think this has been raised already in terms of, conversations and stuff. Why is AFCON the only one? I'm pretty sure even with actually, I think Asians as well, the Asian Cup, that might not be in the summer either. But I think in terms of the football calendar, these things should be considered more. And when you have negotiations between United and Cameroon for a player missing a game or two for their country, which could cost them qualification, it seems ridiculous to me. It also downplays the importance of AFCON, which is what you don't want to do to promote that tournament. Would you go for a -4 Tarkowski out to De Ligt and Enzo out to Dominic Szoboszlai? No. Enzo's facing Burnley away. Szoboszlai's a good player. He's been the best Liverpool option this season, or at least the best just performer for them, but no, that's not worth a -4 hit. 66 with 3 more Doku to come, so 69 in total. Yeah, really good score. Just temper your expectations of Doku. That's all I'm going to say. He's not going to do what he did today on a regular basis. Hey Dylan, how are you? I had a howler in Gameweek 11 with 37 points. How have you done? Well, you can see my score on the left-hand corner, and very soon I'll go for some different graphics like the FDR, and also predicted points for the next 6 game weeks essentially. But yeah, 45, not great, but it's a green arrow. 100,000 places, I'll take it. Whenever you get a green before an international break, it's not the end of the world. But if you ask me, would you rather Arsenal win and you get a red arrow? I would have signed up for that all day long, as opposed to a green and Arsenal not getting the win. Is it time for Semenyo to go? My only concern is he carried us so hard early in the season. The problem with the timing is he's now got great fixtures, so that's where the problems arise. For those that are wildcarding in 13 or later, they have the advantage to see how he does against, his upcoming opponent first, West Ham, and then they can, make a final decision. But if Semenyo blanks in the next game, I think it becomes a very clear sell. But the tide can change very soon and very quickly. But that penalty miss, of course, was massive. If he scored that, no one would be talking about selling Semenyo. If anything, people would ask me, should I buy him in for next week or in 2 weeks' time? So yeah, as covered before, Semenyo to Mbeumo, I would say yes right now, but the tide can change very quickly, and Mbeumo will go to AFCON in Gameweek 16 to 18, while Semenyo won't. Time to bring back Joao Pedro and sell Semenyo? I'm not so sure about that. I like Joao Pedro against Burnley away, but he's very inconsistent. It's Arsenal afterwards, and I don't think, well, I hope anyway, Joao Pedro doesn't score there, but he's a bit of a shithouse, in my opinion. JFT Gunner, yeah. Come on, we've got to hold off 115 FC. We can do it. 4 people triple captain Ballard. Once again, it's going to be second and third teams. And by the way, that celebration, the less said about that, the better. Arsenal reject. Thiago in your team, Dylan. Yeah, but all my strikers did well this week. And that's what I've been saying for the last couple of game weeks. Like, I don't see a massive need to sell these players. And yeah, on a wild card, I'd probably sell Voltemada to Thiago and then bring Mateta for Joao Pedro. But I think the best timing to do that would be Gameweek 13. And I did say this before, I actually prefer Voltemada against Man City as opposed to Brentford away, so the assist was a nice bonus there. Timber to Van Dijk or Pun on Konate to replace other defenders. I mean, after Liverpool's performance today, I'm not thinking about buying their players in. I know their next fixtures are good, they'll probably win some of them, but they're not going to win the title. That's quite evident. And just because they have nice fixtures, it doesn't mean we have to rush to their assets. Arsenal still have the better defence. I think Timber can keep clean sheets against one of Tottenham or Chelsea, maybe even both, hopefully. Come on. But yeah, I don't think Timber's suddenly a sell. I think that's very reactionary. And if you had to pick a Liverpool defender, it would be Van Dijk. Konate has been terrible for most games this season. Joao Pedro to Thiago. Yeah, I agree. After Chelsea play Burnley, exactly that. Not in game week 12, though. Horrid weekend, 2 missed penalties and a red card, 32 points. Yeah, same here. But of course, the red card for Dan Burn didn't really affect me because he was on my bench. But yeah, my defenders didn't do much better with the exception of Lacroix. Rangers still in episode 1, season 1. Yeah. Bruno or Mbeumo? I said this many times in the last month. Mbeumo for me. Even in my deadline stream, I compared both of their stats. I've actually got it ready again so we can analyse that discussion after the Tottenham game from Saturday. But yeah, I think because of AFCON, it is worth debating. I'd say Mbeumo now and bring in Bruno Fernandes afterwards. It's not a big deal because we get 5 available moves in Gameweek 16, irrespective of what you end up doing over the next month or so. Yeah, X should be fine. Yeah. So let me know when you've done it. 34 disaster class this week. Yeah, I don't know what was worse, your score or your actual team, Liverpool. But yeah, let's not talk about Liverpool too much. I think we all know what's happening there. Voltemada to sell to Thiago, good transfer. Yeah, I prefer Thiago over Voltemada in terms of value. He's also on penalties. Voltemada would have taken one if they actually got a penalty because Gordon is injured for now, but he should be back fairly soon. But yeah, Thiago is the better pick. If I'm wildcarding, I'd pick Thiago over Voltemada. Would you do Rangers to Cullen if he had 5 free transfers, no other worries? Well, Cullen's a better FPL option because he actually plays and he can get DEFCON. He scored that late goal against West Ham. And by the way, I think that's the only correct scoreline prediction I got this week. West Ham 3, Burnley 2. But yeah, I mean, I could think of worse transfers, so I'm not completely against that. Before I go to the other questions, let me show you some different screens. I think that is probably worth going through. But to summarize my performance, and I'll delve into all the ins and outs of my decision-making process in my team selection video in over a week's time. Sanchez got a clean sheet in a 3-0 win against Wolves. Lacroix got a standard clean sheet there in a goalless draw against Brighton. Both Timber and Gabriel were very disappointing with a 1-pointer against Sunderland. Ismaila Sarr, all fart but no poo, as they say. I don't really like that phrase. I might not say it again, to be honest. But yeah, he created a chance for Mateta at the beginning of the game, and it went just wide. Sarr also had a shot himself, saved by Verbruggen. Indai blanked in that win against Fulham. Very disappointing. Antoine Semenyo missed a penalty against Aston Villa. Bruno Fernandes got a 96th minute assist to equalise against Tottenham Hotspur, despite United being down to 10 men. Nick Voltemada got the FPL assist for Harvey Barnes, who opened the scoring against Brentford. And despite missing a penalty against Liverpool, Erling Haaland scored, and Man City have closed the gap on Arsenal. But it's still 4 points, and Erling Haaland scored 4 points as well. As for Joao Pedro, he got 7 points, so in the end, he would have been a better captaincy option, but yeah, it's a pretty poor FPL week. I'm quite happy to get a green arrow, all things considered. And look at my bench. It was somehow worse than last week because Reinildo Mandava conceded twice and also got booked. Dan Burn also got sent off. Despite getting DEFCON, it all went, down the drain, and he only got 0 points. Reinders didn't play a single minute, and Dubravka got 2 points. So it's making my bench boost from last week look amazing, and I only got 5 points from it, but let's not talk about that ever again. So I will go through bonus points as well, but I'll do that after going through all these graphics and screens, talking about the FDR as things stand. So Bournemouth are top after their 4-0 loss against Aston Villa. Fulham, Newcastle, Brighton and Liverpool are in the top 5. And I've seen people ask me about, should I buy Van Dijk, sell Timber? I am not on board with that whatsoever. Man City are just outside the top 5, but if you look at the bottom, we've got West Ham, Sunderland, Everton, Spurs and Leeds, and Arsenal are mid-table with some tough fixtures on paper, but I still think, at their best, they can win all 6 of them, and that's probably the standard they need to build another gap, or a bigger gap, at the top of the Premier League table. As for predicted points, Erling Haaland is top. Boring. I'll be honest, this might sound harsh, but I think an injury to the robot, it might make the title race less interesting, but it would make FPL a whole lot more interesting when it comes to the captaincy. But we need these other premiums like Saka, Salah, Fernandes, Palmer to show consistency. So we actually have a decision to make when it comes to the captaincy. But Saka second, Salah third, Fernandes fourth, Mateta is in the top 5 with Semenyo, Szoboszlai, Gabriel, Amad Diallo, and Cole Palmer, who could be available after the international break. When it comes to price changes, Nico Gonzalez, what is that? Surely not. I think that's a glitch. I don't think that's true. But they're saying Mbumo, Rice, and Haaland could all go up in price tonight. As for price falls, Kudus, Gakpo, Lewis Skelly, Wanyeri, Fabio Carvalho, Hwang Hee-chan, Pape Mate Sarr, Tosin, Frimpong, Matson. There's a lot of projected price rises, or price falls, I should say, but not all of them will happen. Ward-Prowse, Alisson Becker, who could be back after the international break, Estev, Dorgu, Wies, Matthews, and yeah, some pretty irrelevant FPL options, to be honest. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, someone asked me about Mbumo versus Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, just like I said before the deadline stream, I prefer Mbumo. They didn't get bonus points against Tottenham Hotspur, which I'll also cover very soon, but Mbumo offers far more goal threat from open play, so despite Bruno having the advantage of penalties and more assist threat, even the creativity is in Mbumo's favour, with 2.6 expected assists and 4 big chances created, the same as Bruno Fernandes, but with key passes, they both have good numbers, and Fernandes is better. 7 big chances for Mbeumo, 5 for Bruno Fernandes. The XG is in Bruno's favour, but that's because of the penalties he's got so far this season. He scored against Burnley in the dying embers of that game to win it for United, but he missed some crucial ones against Fulham and Brentford as they dropped points to both London clubs. But 5 goal contributions for Bruno, 2 goals and 3 assists, 5 goals and 1 assist there for Mbeumo. And in terms of shots, very identical, but Mbeumo has 1 more and 6 shots on target more than Bruno Fernandes. And the same goes for shots in the box. Mbeumo does lead that as well. So I think the best thing to do, whether you're wildcarding or making transfers, is buy Mbeumo. And if you still want that United coverage, once Mbeumo goes to AFCON in Gameweek 16 to 18, sell him to Bruno Fernandes. I think that's probably the best play. And this is a quick look at my provisional team selection for Gameweek 12. I've got 2 free transfers after rolling in Gameweek 11, and I've got the wildcard in my back pocket, which I'll either use in 12 or 13. But I've got Sanchez and Joao Pedro away to Burnley, Lacroix and Sarr away to Wolves, Timber and Gabriel in that North London derby at home, Ndai away to Man United, and Bruno Fernandes in the same game at Old Trafford, Antoine Semenyo facing West Ham at home, Erling Haaland away to Newcastle, and Voltemada facing Man City at home. So I don't see a big need to wildcard just yet. I think it's a decent team on paper, but once we get to Gameweek 13 and you've got Arsenal facing Chelsea, that could be a great time to wildcard, but I'd still want a double Arsenal defence unless things drastically change from now until then, and I might change the sort of structure. So instead of going for Timber, I'll go for Raya in goal, and then a different premium defender like Daniel Munoz, for example, and then selling Lacroix to Senesi, so I can change things up a little bit, maybe go against the template in certain areas, so sell Semenyo, and then bring in a differential midfielder like Declan Rice, for example, or I'll bring in Mbeumo and Saka in the midfield. And as for up front, I think Mateta and Igor Thiago would partner Erling Haaland, and then, yeah, the clear sells here would be Reinders, I'd say Dan Burn, and even Renildo Mandava, although is it really worth going to Mukiele? Probably, even at 0.2 million more, but it's not like a massive priority in my FPL team. But as you can see, I've got a definitive plan in mind, but I'll see how things go in terms of injuries and suspensions and stuff like that over the coming weeks. But yeah, I'm quite open to wildcarding in 12 or 13, and based on the fixtures, I think 13 does look a little bit better as things stand. But remember, this is a reaction stream with my initial thoughts for the game week. These can evolve and change, and ultimately I could still deploy the wildcard in 12, so you'll find out in my team selection and of course the next deadline stream in a couple of weeks' time. So stay tuned for that and use your fantasy content as well. What about FPL Challenge? Well, not great, and I made a late change of selling Pickford to sells. It only cost me 5 points, but yeah, not great, right? Whenever you make a late transfer and you lose out, it's not a great feeling. Gabriel blanked with a 1-pointer. Salah blanked, and he really should have scored. He just about, went wide with a chance he had one-on-one. Haaland got 4 points. I captained Mateta, so that was a flop. And Joao Pedro got 8 points because this week it was called Change the Game. So double bonus points was basically how things worked. So that's pretty much it in terms of this. If you want to see my scoreline predictions and laugh or cry, whatever you want to do, then feel free. But not terrible in terms of the results, but in terms of the actual scorelines, maybe not the greatest. So unfortunately, for me anyway, Man City 2, Liverpool 2 was wrong. And it was a comfortable win for the citizens as Liverpool drop out of the title race already in November. Nottingham Forest 1, Leeds 0. Crystal Palace 2, Brighton 1. That was obviously a goalless draw. But of course, Forest did win the game 3-1 in the end. Brentford 1, Newcastle 1. I think that was a good prediction, but the red card from Dan Burn changed it completely. And I got this right in terms of 4 goals in the Villa game, but I didn't expect them to score all 4 of them. I instead went for a 2-2 draw, so that didn't go too well. 3-1 Chelsea, not too shabby. Sunderland 2, Arsenal. Well, actually, I said that same thing in my deadline stream by accident. So I think I jinxed it. I said Sunderland 2, then I said, oh wait, no, 0, Arsenal 2. So I think next time I'm going to make sure I don't jinx Arsenal, that's for sure. West Ham 3, Burnley 2, the only correct scoreline. Everton 2, Fulham 1, and Tottenham 1, Man United 1. So let's go now to the bonus points, talk about DEFCON from every single game. So this will provide clarity in terms of how the points have been awarded. And remember, because we're on the Sunday now, games from the Saturday can still have like changes in terms of the bonus point system, which is a bit of a weird thing because essentially if a team or let's say a match is played towards the very end of a game week, there is no chance for FPL to rectify things based on the Opta stats and correcting certain details which could impact bonus points and stuff like that. So that's something they need to work on, and I've said this from last season. But for Tottenham 2, Man United 2, the bonus points were awarded to Odegaard, who made a great impact off the bench. Amad Diallo also shared maximum bonus points, and Richarlison, the pigeon, got 1. Will he ever learn in terms of, scoring an equalizer or something, or a potential winner, and taking his shirt off, dancing like a pigeon, and then just getting humbled? Probably not. That is Richarlison for you. In terms of DEFCON, Joao Paulinho again got 12 DEFCON, so that's 112 for the season. Casemiro also hit it. The same goes for De Ligt, who scored that late equalizer. For the Everton game, the bonus points were awarded to Keane, Idrissa Gana Gueye, and Dewsbury Hall. With DEFCON, Dewsbury Hall, Joachim Andersen, Tete, Sessegnon, and Bassi were the only players to get DEFCON. For West Ham against Burnley, the bonus points were awarded to Soucek and Cullen. They both got maximum. And Callum Wilson got 1. With DEFCON, they were awarded to Potts, Wan-Bissaka, Florentino Luis, unsurprisingly, Estev, and Tuanzebe. Cullen was actually very close. He was 3 away from DEFCON there. So in the Arsenal-Sunderland game, the bonus points went to Saka, Trossard, and Brobby. Yeah, Arsenal back to Charity FC here. DEFCON went to Siddiqui, Xhaka. Yeah, that's my message to that little twat. Saka, and that's it for the Arsenal game. For Chelsea 3, Wolves 0. Gusto, Garnacho, and Joao Pedro. And DEFCON went to Chichawa. He was the only player in that game to secure DEFCON. For Aston Villa 4, Bournemouth 0. So going to the Sunday games now. The bonus points will be awarded to Buendia, Emi Martinez, who saved the penalty, and Anana. Andre's not even my name, innit? Defensive contributions, yeah. Senesi got it again, but yeah, it doesn't really matter because he's shipped in 4. Milivojevic, I'll call him Milo. He also got DEFCON. And that's it. The likes of Buendia and Scott weren't too far away. For Brentford 3, Newcastle 1. Igor Thiago gets maximum bonus points following that brace. Harvey Barnes gets 2. And Kevin Schade is awarded 1 bonus point. For DEFCON, they were awarded to Yarmouk, Chow, Byrne, Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, and Botman. So a lot of DEFCON scored in that game. In the goalless draw between Crystal Palace and Brighton, the bonus points were awarded to Mitchell, Henderson, and Canvot. For DEFCON, Canvot, Richards, Mitchell, and that's it. We've got 2 games left here to analyse bonus points and DEFCON. So Gibbs White gets maximum bonus, Nemecha gets 1, and Hutchinson is awarded... Sorry, I said Nemecha gets 2, and Hutchinson gets 1. For DEFCON, Milenkovic, Elliot Anderson, Aronson, and that's it. And finally, after a stinker by Liverpool, the bonus points have gone to Doku, Mateus Nunes, and Nico Gonzalez. DEFCON was awarded to O'Reilly, and that's it. What an awful game week this was, but yeah. The less said about Game Week 11, the better. Let's move on now to Game Week 12, and we've got an international break to maybe reflect on certain things. We are approaching the end of the first half of the season, and this, of course, will be the final international break of the calendar year. But let's just go now to my amazing FPL team. But yeah, even though I'm not particularly happy with it, or with this week, it is 6 green arrows out of the last 7. So still a very strong showing from my squad, and I've still got the wild card in my back pocket. So as usual, I'll go through member questions first. Let's get the likes up. The ratio just isn't good enough, so let's get that up to 100 plus at the very least, and then closing on new goals like 38k on YouTube, and also build all the social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. There is also my Patreon and the Championships, so click the join button on YouTube or go to patreon.com/FPL Dylan. Join my Discord server, the FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues, and leave a 5-star review on Spotify. All of this helps us out in the channel and promotes the growth even further. So let's go for member questions first. As usual, that is the main perk alongside early access to my videos. Oh no. Okay, I'll just read out because you remember. Not the first part though. What a fabulous performance from the whole team. Jeremy Doku, take a bow. Yeah, you'll be cussing him fairly soon, I think, but he played very well. I think he's very inconsistent though. Foden and Declan Rice or Bukayo Saka and another mid. I was going to say, is your caps lock broken, but you did rectify that after in your message. Not sure who, but can't get to any nailed on City assets unless I go for Doku. Doku's not nailed on. I was very, optimistic, or should I say, very confident he would start against Liverpool, but he's not going to start every single game, and even when he does start games, he can be subbed off early. So I'd be a bit careful. I know you're a City fan, so feel free to go for your assets, and obviously you'll have a better idea of who will start than I do, but I don't think Doku is the most nailed on. In terms of the best City assets apart from Haaland, I think Cherki is probably my favourite City midfielder still. But of course with him, he's even more of a risk in terms of minutes compared to Doku. Matheus Nunes got DEFCON 2. I thought, yeah, when I checked it, I didn't see it, so I have to have another look. But yeah, I'm not so sure about that. So let's see. Maybe they updated it. So I'm having a look now. Yeah, he did get it. You're right. So Matheus Nunes also got DEFCON. Thanks for the correction. I think the website didn't update it, so it needed a refresh. Reigned 0 points on my bench. Another, caps lock issue. Super frustrated. I forgot to make the transfer. Buendia was almost in my team. Buendia's been in great form, but I'm not so sure about him as an FPL asset long term. But if you want to go there, be my guest. Yeah, but come on. Are you going to base... Come on, that guy's an idiot. Let's not base at least Arsenal fans' opinion on that guy. Gakpo will be benched forever? No, I never said that, but he's not nailed on. So if you want to bring in Gakpo, just stomach the benchings, because he has been benched recently. Oh, so he lost because you jinxed it. If you're on about Arsenal, it was a loss, or it feels like a loss, but, looking at it logically without emotion, it was a draw, but a very disappointing one at that. But yeah, I did jinx it, and I recognize it. I realized because I made the same thing again. I said Sunderland... did I say nil? So I think this time I said Sunderland 0, Arsenal 2, and then during my predictions when I said 2-0, yeah, I said Sunderland 2. That was a slip of the tongue, and I jinxed it. But not again. No worries. Lewis Mark says, thank you for being brilliant in giving us FPL information. Much appreciated, bro. Shame about our result yesterday against Sunderland. Yeah, look, it's very frustrating and disappointing. I was pissed off yesterday, but I'm kind of over it, and I'm still quite confident about the rest of the season, but my main concern with Arsenal is the injuries. And I said this even when Arsenal were winning 10 consecutive games, and it's still a great run overall, but it's very difficult to maintain the results and the performances. And to be honest, I still think the performance was good enough to win. But when you make mistakes like that at the back, you can be punished even against, newly promoted sides. So it's something Arsenal need to be very wary about. They can't make those mistakes against Bayern Munich, even against Tottenham and Chelsea, who aren't as good. You've got to be fully on it and beat them. That's as simple as that. Yeah, I went double Palace defense with Arsenal also last week, and it worked a treat, and then Palace came through today. Yeah, look, in terms of the teams to double up on defensively, I think Arsenal are the only one, really, but Palace, because of the sheer options they've got, like Lacroix and Richards for DEFCON, even Gay is pretty good for that, and also the odd goal or assist. Daniel Munoz is very exciting to own. That's why doubling up on Palace defensively isn't the worst thing in the world, but I would still, ideally, go for one defender, Sarr and Mateta, if you want to triple up. And I think 2 is the sweet spot overall. But at least it did go in your favour this time round. Okay, so let's see if there are any other member questions or comments. Thank you, by the way, to the moderators who have been sorting the chat out. Yeah, the chat is still very pretty lively, actually. I've put my question underneath your most recent X post. Okay, I'll have a look. Cherki and Saka, I'll bench Cherki this week. I don't think he will start. Saka should never be a benching consideration, really, in my opinion, unless he's facing like Liverpool away, although not this Liverpool team right now. It's a shame Saka missed that game, by the way, in Gameweek 3. But yeah, or Foden and Rice. I think Rice is still the better asset, more consistent, he's cheaper. Foden has moments of brilliance, and I think he's been playing relatively well recently, but yeah, I think in FPL I'd rather go for Rice. And at Foden's price tag, or for a little bit more, you can go for Mbeumo. And I think that's the best way to go about it. But yeah, Saka for me. And I'm not just saying this because, Arsenal City, I'm just going to say Arsenal. I just generally think with City assets, the minutes risk is too big. And both Saka and Rice are consistent in general, albeit Rice offers better value. 2 weeks for healing, relaxing thinking. Not everyone will do that, but I would advise that instead of stressing about FPL. In Boomer captain next week, not necessarily. He will be my top 10 captaincy options, but not first. Only positive was Ballard for me. Yeah, if you start Ballard, fair play. Even if you got like a bit of shithouse points off the bench, you got to take the luck when it comes. But yeah, I wouldn't be buying in Ballard or these Sunderland players for the next couple. But people obviously looked at the points from Ballard this week and they're buying him in. We'll see how that turns out in the next couple. Next, these Man City fans are going to say it's time to bring in Foden, says 0-0. Will Arsenal keep a clean sheet against Spurs? Hopefully. I think it's possible. Tottenham have the best away record in the league. It's a North London derby. There typically is goals, but Arsenal usually beat Tottenham at the Emirates. And even in recent seasons, at their ground, yeah, very standard stuff. Wins. As things stand, I don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet. I think it will be like 3-1 Arsenal, and they need to win. That's all that matters to me. The clean sheet obviously would be a bonus, but if I'm asked that question now, I think no. Pope to Alisson, Gakpo to Szoboszlai, and maybe Chalobah to Virgil. Go now, so I have funds, or wait. I'd say wait. I did cover potential price changes, and for example, Alisson could go down tonight. So if anything, you could actually wait a little bit, and you would benefit from it in terms of information, and it's also easier to afford because Alisson goes down in price. So just wait for that. And ultimately, with Alisson, I'm not sure about him as an FPL asset. I've always said that he's too injury prone for a goalkeeper. And also Liverpool's defence today was shambolic. I'm tempted to take a risk and bring Kevin Schade or Szoboszlai as a differential. Yeah, Schade's a bit underrated. A little bit overpriced though at 7 million. Szoboszlai, good player, but not the most consistent when it comes to goal contributions. If I had to pick right now, it's probably going to be Szoboszlai. I think he's got more routes to points. And he had a great strike today, by the way. I think it was Liverpool's first shot on target, which came in the 76th minute. Simply not good enough from the Reds. Worst game week so far this season? For me personally, no, because I got a green arrow. It is one of the worst game weeks in general because of how low scoring it was. So from that perspective, I think you have a good point. But yeah, 40 points isn't too bad. It's not great, but it could be worse. Yeah, I think Bowen to Thiago is a great move, but I have to say this, do not be surprised if Thiago blanks the next game and Bowen hauls, but long-term Thiago's the better pick. So don't be put off if that happens in Game Week 12. That would be my advice. So let me go to that message by the channel member on Twitter and see. But yeah, I'm not sure. What's this? So have wildcard and triple captain and was going to wildcard this week. Okay, we can go through it on screen together, by the way, if you don't mind. Just let me know, but I'm going to have it ready on screen here. Okay, so yeah, have wildcard, free hit and triple captain, and was going to wildcard this week, but having second thoughts. As looking at this team, the core is strong, albeit the bench is weak. But if I wildcard, I think I might have to get rid of players I like, such as Munoz and 2 Palace defenders and Pedro. Joao Pedro, that is. Should I wildcard or which transfers? Yeah, Enzo obviously is yellow flagged. He's not been called up for Argentina, but yeah, he's going to be fine for Game Week 12. I wouldn't be too concerned with that. I understand what you're saying. It doesn't look like a team you need to wildcard, to be quite honest with you. Even if the bench is weak, you've already used the bench boost. So I think the best time to wildcard for you is Game Week 13. Unfortunately, though, you've got the triple captaincy, and I also think the best time to triple captain is in 13 when Haaland plays Leeds. So that's where the issue lies. As for the free hit, I'd probably save that for later in the season, but that's very team dependent, and it also what it ultimately comes down to is what your wildcard squad is, because that will influence when you should free hit later in the campaign. So use the website fpl.team, try to plan these weeks and see what kind of suits you most, but yeah, if I had to say this to most people, for those with like those chips remaining, I would say wildcard 12, free hit, triple captain in 13, and free hit a little bit later on. But in this situation, it might be worth switching things around a little bit. And unfortunately, it might require triple captaining Haaland against Sunderland or in another game like that instead of Leeds, which for me would be the best triple captaincy opportunity left in the first half of the season. So let me know your thoughts, but I understand why you don't want to wildcard this week, and I agree with you. I don't think you need to in Game Week 12. Okay, so that question has been covered. I am now going to go back to my FPL squad and answer some more questions and probably whiz through them because there are still a lot of messages to get through. If I haven't gone through your question or you think I've skipped you, that's probably because I've answered your question already. I'll be trying to cover new questions, and this will be also applied to deadline streams as well. So bear that in mind. Spamming will not be tolerated as well. So obviously moderators will deal with that. The same goes for myself. Mustafa says, we'll use free hit in 13. My defense is Gabriel, Timber, Calafiori, Munoz, and Van Dijk. Plan was to bring in Szoboszlai for Longstaff. Should I do the same or bring Rice instead of Szoboszlai and remove one Arsenal defender? I do prefer Rice over Szoboszlai, but not enough, especially considering Liverpool's fixtures, to sell an Arsenal defender. Well, to be fair, you got a triple up. But still, I'm not sure if it's worth selling an Arsenal defender to then get Rice. Because it depends who you can get. I mean, maybe Calafiori down to a cheap defender could give you enough funds to bring in Mbeumo in the midfield or something like that. Mateta up front. But here's a good question. So I still stand by what I just said about I'm not sure about taking an Arsenal defender out to get Rice instead of just buying Szoboszlai for free. Having said that, because you've tripled up on Arsenal defensively, I think it's not a terrible time to just double up. So it's a very close one. As things stand, without knowing the context of your team in general, like who else you've got, the money in the bank, and which other chips you've got remaining, I would say bring in Rice in the midfield, sell Calafiori to a different defender, and maybe try to get someone like Mbeumo or Mateta. But you might have these players already. AQ291 says Tarkowski and Van der Ven out for Van Dijk and Cash. I'm not that convinced about Cash or Villa defenders still, but they have been fairly decent recently. I do like Van Dijk, despite Liverpool being quite terrible defensively this season, and today they were shambolic, but yeah, I think Van Dijk was quite unfortunate not to get that goal against Man City, but overall, I would say yes. I had Burn, Semenyo and Haaland and Mateta captain, 2 penalties missed and a red. Bad game week. You're not the only one, mate. A lot of people in the live chat have said something similar, with the exception of Mateta captain, but I think that was a decent decision, just a bad outcome, and Haaland only got 2 more points, so it's not the end of the world. I was told at the start of the season, Sunderland a team to watch. Yeah, I know, but this is the thing, right? I think a lot of us looked at pre-season and also how they did last year, and ultimately their transfers have made all the difference, you know, and they have exceeded expectations, but it doesn't mean they're still not potentially a relegation candidate. I think they will stay up, but would it surprise me if they had to secure safety within the last 3 game weeks of the season? No, because they've got some terrible fixtures coming up. They still drop points against Arsenal. I think in the second half they were thoroughly outplayed, but they showed good spirit. I think defensively they did what I expected them to with a back 5, unlike what Enzo Maresca said a few weeks ago, which was very strange to say the least. But yeah, they have been the biggest surprise package of the campaign, but in a couple of years they could be relegated. That's how football is, even next season. Is Doku a buy? No. Are Arsenal going to lose momentum? It's just 2 goals conceded. I know Sunderland scoring them is quite embarrassing. I've said that before. It's too early to say that. I mean, Arsenal are still unbeaten in 14 matches, 8 clean sheets out of 9. I don't think so. And also what I think gives Arsenal fans hope is the fact that key players should be back for the North London derby, or at least for those crucial games coming up like Chelsea and Bayern Munich. So, you know, bring back Gyökeres into this team. Also, Martinelli, Odegaard, who probably walks into any team in the league, to be honest. And all these different players, Madueke, Gabriel Jesus, they'd all not just stack up the starting 11, but also the bench, because you look at the options Arsenal had against Sunderland up front, and it was just Dalman and Wanyeri. That's not good enough. That reminds me of last season. Yeah, it has been a tough game week, but I'll take the green arrow. 34 points, terrible game week. 1 mistake was Dubravka instead of Donnarumma in my team. Yeah, I think I recommended that, to be honest, but I never expected City to keep a clean sheet and win that comprehensively, but Liverpool were terrible. I'm really frustrated with Gakpo, and I think about Szoboszlai, Cherki or Shada. What do you think? If I had to pick a player from those 3, it would be Szoboszlai. Cherki is a nice punt, but the minutes are going to be too big of a headache for me. Kevin Shada's a decent differential, but from Brentford, I think Igor Thiago is enough. Thoughts on Szoboszlai or Shada? So yeah, I just covered that. Thank you very much. Best team for a defender? Yeah, other than Arsenal, goes without saying. Palace. I think Palace are the best ones, but you've got Munoz already. This is the thing. I was asked about O'Reilly before the deadline, but just a couple of weeks ago, he was yeah, he was getting benched. If you had to pick something a little bit different, then go for O'Reilly, but just don't be surprised if he gets his minutes managed, especially over the winter period. It's such a congested schedule, so yeah, maybe O'Reilly would be a decent short-term punt anyway. Dawson and Boomer captain. Not my favorite in terms of like, I'm not going to put him number one. Bit of a spoiler alert, but you'll see my graphics in future videos. He will be my top 10 though. Thank you very much, Goldhead. I appreciate it. Bruno to Saka. Seems like Saka has the highest ceiling. Yes, and Bruno's been very disappointing this season. I would say both of them have a very similar route to points. The only difference being that Bruno is the nailed-on penalty taker, while Saka could share them with Gyökeres once he comes back. But yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd be Saka, and I'd cover United offensively with Mbeumo until he goes off to AFCON. Is Mbeumo really necessary if his only entry point is after either getting Salah out or a -4, Kudus and Gabriel out, Mbeumo, Richardson? In that case, I wouldn't go for Mbeumo. Also, considering that he's not going to be available in Game Week 16 to 18, in one of those Game Weeks, he'll go off to AFCON. It all depends on the negotiations between Cameroon and United. And yeah, for a -4, selling the best defender in the game, not worth it. Also selling Salah now, when he's got great fixtures. I mean, look, with Salah, ultimately, he needs to produce quite regularly to justify that 14.2 million price tag. He hasn't been doing that this season, but yeah, thank you, by the way, to Lager for moderating the chat. I wasn't aware he spammed, otherwise I wouldn't have answered the question, and I probably shouldn't have. Burnt to Van Dijk, yes. But once again, Liverpool were terrible today, and I don't expect that many clean sheets, but the fixtures are great. Baltimore to Joao Pedro or Thiago. Long term is Igor Thiago. Caicedo to Ndai, Sarr, or keep Caicedo. I still like Caicedo enough to keep him. Van der Ven to Anderson, Richards a roll. I would go to Richards if you can, but to be honest with you, with Palace, I'd still try to go to Munoz if possible. But Richards is fine. I think he's better than Van der Ven and Anderson right now. Thank you as well to Lager for moderating other chats. Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about spammers again. Preliminary thoughts are Pope and Voltemada out. To who? I have absolutely no clue. Yeah, Thiago is a good long-term option, though. And I don't mind Voltemada against City, to be honest. At St James's Park, I think Newcastle could score. Don't really expect them to win. They usually bend over for City, but yeah, Voltemada is pretty decent. Yeah, 2 missed penalties punished me this week. Yeah, look, I also had the 2 missed penalties. I don't really see it that way, but maybe, I don't know. If you captain Semenyo, then I understand that. That's even more frustrating, but yeah, ultimately with Haaland, when he blanks, I don't really care. If he misses a penalty, don't care. Really don't care. Enzo to Mbeumo, a no-brainer. I prefer Mbeumo, but Enzo is still worth holding against Burnley unless we get information over the next week or two that he is a doubt to play against Burnley. Hate to ask as a Game Week 1 owner, but is it time for Semenyo to go? As covered earlier, it's a bit of an awkward time because Bournemouth have great fixtures now, so there could be an upturn in form, but yeah, he hasn't been good enough for the last 4 or 5 game weeks. Sebastian puts his team in Spanish, 2 free transfers, 4.5 in the bank. Sugerencias. Te digo la verdad, como arquero prefiero a Raya a largo plazo, pero ya tienes a Gabriel Calafiori, así que no vale la pena hacerlo ahora. Y con tus otros jugadores, no me gusta que tengas Dewsbury Hall y King. Parece que no tienes mucho dinero en el mediocampo. Y también Reinders. Sí, para mí necesitas invertir más dinero en tu mediocampo. No sé, 4.5 millones. Reinders a Sarr de Crystal Palace sería bastante bueno. Y también vender uno de Dewsbury Hall o King. Prefiero vender a King si puedes. Así que sí, que vas a tener 2 o 3 millones en el banco. Así que King a Declan Rice sería bueno. No me molestaría. Pero sí, te digo la verdad, viendo a tu equipo, lo que más me suena, lo que tengo dudas es tu mediocampo. Mbeumo y Semenyo están bien. Mbeumo es el mejor que tienes, pero lo demás son bastante flojos. Así que es mejor vender a King y Reinders. Gameweek 13, optimal free hit for those stacked with Palace, United, Chelsea, Arsenal. Great for targeting City and Paul. I haven't looked too far ahead to Gameweek 13 free hit, to be honest, but it is a possibility I'm considering. So my current plan is to wildcard in 12 or 13. If I wildcard in 12, then I think the free hit is maybe not likely, but obviously that opens up the door for the Gameweek 13 free hit in my case. But yeah, that's still many weeks away. We're talking about 3 or 4 now. Best wildcard 11, I'm going to save that for a video. I do wildcard podcasts every single week, so yeah, I'm not going to spoil the fun by just doing it now. The alternative is to buy Szoboszlai, and it allows me to triple captain Haaland for Leeds at home. Yeah, it looks good. I like that. I think for those with the triple captaincy, Gameweek 13 Haaland against Leeds at home is the best thing you can do. The Akram says, I have 2 lines. My team is Sanchez, Senesi, Munoz, Gabriel, Enzo, Sarr, Semenyo, Kudus, Pedro, Haaland, Mateta. I want to sell Kudus for either Mbeumo or Szoboszlai. I'd just go for Mbeumo, even if it forces a free hit in 13, but I'm not sure exactly why that is for you. Maybe because of the fixtures, the way they kind of, they go about with Chelsea playing Arsenal. Thinking about moving Mbeumo to Salah. I like Szoboszlai, but he is on 4 yellow cards. I wouldn't sell Mbeumo to Salah, no. I would consider Salah if I felt I could bring him in whilst not jeopardizing the rest of my squad, because I'm not going to sell Haaland. Bench 2 of Thiago, Szoboszlai, Rice, Timber, and Senesi. I would probably bench Timber and maybe Szoboszlai. Oh, the bench is Xhaka. Yeah, Xhaka I'd leave on the bench. He's a prick anyway. My midfield, Saka, Semenyo, Sarr, Anthony, Minter, except Saka, all blanked, literal binary week. I don't really know whether I should drop someone or roll. Free hit and bench boost still left. Yeah, bench boost, I mean, you can get that out of the way as soon as possible. It's a crap booster anyway. I've said that from the beginning. It's the only time I've played it in a single game week, and it was absolute tits, if you can say that. Yeah, Saka did the business for you, but the other midfielders, very disappointing. I still think Sarr, Semenyo, Minter are good FPL options, but the likes of Rice, Mbeumo would definitely stand out. It does require a downgrade elsewhere, though. So, yeah, Jadon Anthony is the weak link in your midfield. And even if you're having second thoughts about Semenyo, the fixtures are great, so it might be worth keeping him for 1 more. West Ham are still terrible defensively. They shipped in 2 against Burnley. Are Mbeumo and Thiago the best transfer targets now? Not necessarily. I mean, in their respective positions, yeah, maybe they are one of the best, but I wouldn't say they're definitively the outright best you can buy, but I'll cover this in a Transfers podcast as well. Thoughts on O'Reilly? When is Aït-Nouri coming back? Well, Aït-Nouri was supposed to be back a couple of weeks ago, but O'Reilly's playing very well at the moment, and Pep Guardiola, as woke as he can be, isn't, going to bench him if he continues to perform like that. But Aït-Nouri was on the bench against Liverpool as an unused substitute. He also featured against Dortmund, so he has been back for a while, since late November. Sorry, late November. We're not even late November. Since late October. Yeah, since the 21st of October he's been available. But look, rotation's going to happen with Man City assets, whether it's Cherki, Doku, O'Reilly. That's my problem with them. I disagree, Asfar. If you want to go for Doku, go for it, and we can analyze that in a few weeks' time, but I'm not really going to go there. Until I see consistency from him, yeah, I think Doku is an avoid. Our Villa players, defense mainly, back into the convo with nice games ahead. Villa are just an awkward team, man. I mean, I had Konsa to begin this season, and I sold him against Man City, and he got DEFCON and a clean sheet. I think with Villa, in the easy games, they'll open up more, they'll score goals, but also concede plenty. And I think this season they have been more solid defensively, but they still concede that 1, maybe sometimes 2 goals that just make them very annoying to own in FPL. So it's something to consider, but not for me. I think Mbeumo's price will increase by 0.2, 0.3. Yes, because he's a bandwagon pick. He won Player of the Month. He's playing really well recently, but yeah, look, if I was wildcarding, I'd bring him in. I'm not going to just force a wildcard early because I'm still open to using it in 13 anyway. So if it means I miss out on a bit of team value, or Mbeumo goes up to 8.6, 8.7 by then, so be it. Yeah, Voltemada to Thiago looks good. I think Voltemada is good against Man City, though, and he's still worth holding in certain situations, but Thiago is the better pick on the wildcard. Would you prioritize Crystal Palace defense, Richards, Lacroix, or attack? Yeah, great question. I think Sarr and Mateta are quite inconsistent. I think the same applies to most of them, but at least with the defenders, they're quite cheap. But I'll be honest, Mateta would be the preference. He is the priority for me. So with those incredible underlying numbers, the volume of chances, he would be the preference. So that is my answer. Hey Dylan, just joined the stream. How do you feel about your team's score this weekend? Shit, but I already covered that earlier. It's a poor result. I think Arsenal did enough to win the game. They had plenty of chances to score a third or fourth, which would have killed it. But look, I'm not going to... I think in terms of the manager, and sometimes when I try to get things wrong, I'll criticize him. I don't think he really did too much wrong this weekend. He set out the team the way we all expected. I think the first half wasn't good enough, but then a great response in the second, completely dominated. But my only criticism would be that towards the end of the game, Arsenal could have kept on, attacking because Sunderland were under the cosh. They sat back a little bit too much for my liking, and the attacking depth just isn't there with 6-7 injuries. So yeah, it was quite felt in the last couple of matches. I said it against Slavia Prague as well, where Arsenal just didn't have options on the bench. Only Wanyeri and Dalman, which isn't really good enough in a title race. But it's still 4 points clear, and ultimately it could have been even better this week. A draw for City Liverpool and then a win would have changed it completely. But yeah, it's going to be a season of ups and downs. I still think Arsenal have the best team, so they have to capitalise and just go on to win it. Hey Dylan, time to sell Salah. Saka confirmed. This is the thing, right? People asking me about buying Szoboszlai, Salah, Ekitike, Van Dijk, and all these Liverpool players. I'm not sure if it's the time to sell Salah necessarily, but at least you got some returns from him recently against Villa and Brentford. But yeah, the fixtures are great. It's a bit similar with Semenyo, where he's been really poor recently, but at least he's got great fixtures coming up, so that could even out things a little bit. Yeah, Ruben Dias might be worth a look, but I'd probably just take a punt on O'Reilly. A bit cheaper. Also, he got DEFCON today and an assist, so O'Reilly had a great score, which is literally the only thing I was asking for in terms of the City-Liverpool game to not happen, but it did. That kind of sums up my season sometimes, but yeah, Ruben Dias is okay. I'd still rather go for Gabriel Timber long-term, Daniel Munoz, to be honest, but he's okay. Nothing special. 48 points, took a -4 to bring in Joao Pedro captain and Rice, while taking out Saka and Guiu. Yeah, that's quite a mixed bag, to be fair. But I did say this before with Saka. I fancied him against the likes of Sunderland, Tottenham and Chelsea, so we'll see how he does in those London derbies after the international break. Semenyo is on the chopping block, but Enzo could be an injury doubt. That's why it's worth waiting with these transfer plans. We can discuss it, of course. That's the point of the stream, but these are only initial takes and ideas going into Gameweek 12. Evening, Dylan. What a week. 35 points of blanks flying everywhere. Verbruggen benched, Burn sent off. By the way, how many games is he going to miss? Only one. It was a second yellow card. So the way it works is if a player gets sent off directly for foul play, he will miss 3 games. But if it's like, someone's going one-on-one through on goal and they make a professional last man foul and get a direct red card, they only miss 1 game. And we've seen that with Robert Sanchez earlier this season. But yeah, to answer your question, it's only a 1-game ban because it was a second yellow card. Bench 1, Sarr, Enzo Caicedo, Saka, Semenyo, Mateta, Thiago. Yeah, at the moment, it might seem crazy, but I'd bench Caicedo. Who would you start in Gameweek 12 between Calafiori, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Lacroix? I would bench Calafiori and start the rest. Keep it simple. I don't see good options in midfield to replace Caicedo. Ivan Bumo, Semenyo, Saka. I still like Ismaila Sarr, but he has been very underwhelming. You've also got Enzo Fernandez, but he's an injury doubt, and I don't think he's worth purchasing right now necessarily. Ndai's good, but quite disappointing against Fulham. There are options, but not many standouts. I could save the triple captain for Haaland, West Ham at home in Gameweek 17, and then Wildcard next week. But what would I do this week? No clear way to Mbumo. Yeah, I think just roll, and even if you're wildcarding in 13, which I could do as well, having 2 or 3 transfers available after wildcarding can be very crucial. But of course, in Gameweek 16, remember, we all get 5 free transfers anyway because of AFCON, which is a stupid idea by FPL, as I covered in my key changes to FPL video. But it is what it is, right? It does cater to the casuals or the kind of, let's just say, beginners of FPL. Got the same points, Dylan, 45 points. Do you think we should get a green arrow? I've got a green arrow. It just depends on your rank, right? But yeah, all you see on screen is taken by the website livefpl.net. So there might be a few changes in rank in terms of a few hundred places, but essentially I am at that sort of rank right now, and the green arrow is definitely secured, but not a great week, and yeah, quite a weird one FPL-wise. How long until we get to the 1,000 points mark? By the end of the calendar year, maybe. We've got a lot of game weeks in December, so yeah, I'd say by Christmas maybe, but it depends, right? If you're having a terrible, terrible season, maybe not. I don't really think so. I mean, Bruno is not really a sell. I don't see him as a buy. Season-long hold, I would maybe say no. And if I was wildcarding, I'd bring in Mbumo and then sell to Bruno Fernandes by Gameweek 16, 17. Mustafa says have Mateta Bruno. Okay. Bowen to Thiago Mateta. I'd still go for Mateta, but Thiago offers great value. Once again, I don't think he would have scored one goal, let alone a brace, if Newcastle didn't go down to 10 men. And Eze for who will take a -4 next week. I'd still keep Eze. I think there's also a bit of a storyline, like we saw against Crystal Palace a few weeks ago. Eze could score the win against Tottenham or get a big contribution. But yeah, for a -4 hit, I wouldn't sell Eze. Not for me. With Wolves performing right now, will they be relegated this season? Well, they're not performing, but I'm guessing I know what you meant. I've said this for many months now. I think Wolves will go down, so nothing's changed really. Paqueta and Reinders out for Shada and Szoboszlai for a -4. Yeah, I guess so, but I think what I'd do, if possible, is just sell Reinders now to Szoboszlai or Shada and do the other transfer for free instead of a -4 hit. Sold Burn for Gay, who wasn't in the squad, and had James and Chelsea defence triple up. What could have been? Yeah, but look, Burn got sent off anyway, so you've kind of got rid of a problem anyway, and Mark Gay should be available for Gameweek 12. I'll cover that if anything changes. Bench 1, yeah, I did cover this already. So I'm just going to skip the questions I've already answered, just saying. I'm not going to repeat myself. Burn, Senesi to Van Dijk and Estev, only need to start one. I like Van Dijk, but I would only do this if you don't have another 4 million defender. So if Estev is your only one after making those moves, then go for it. But I think Senesi's worth keeping, if possible. He also got Defcon today. Which players would you most like to bring in right now? Well, yeah, Mbuma would be up there, and if I was wildcarding, Thiago would come in for one of Voltemada or Joao Pedro, but even this week, I'm quite happy to keep Voltemada. I don't see like a massive need or rush to do that transfer. And with Joao Pedro, I think the best time to sell him is Gameweek 13. So, yeah, Munoz defensively. I think Rice or Saka in the midfield. I'd be quite keen on getting one of them. But, yeah, FPL's a bit of a weird one right now because I've got the wild card. I'll probably use it fairly soon. You know, maybe Jinx City. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Get a Liverpool player or two, but ultimately, the wild card in 12 or 13 is to target fixture swings, but my team has done really well recently, so it just really depends, right? Easy says strategy or no strategy. Strategy. I mean, I'm not going to say no strategy, otherwise, what's the point? Free hit or wild card next game week? Depends really, but I'd probably say wild card in most situations. Did Foden pass the eye test today? He played fairly well. Cherky is probably my favourite in terms of his efficiency of goal contributions per 90, but in terms of like in all these kind of City players, I'm not really too keen, apart from Haaland. Thank you, FPL Kevy, for moderating the chat, by the way. Yeah, I know. I was aware of that, Arthur. Apologies for your answer, but who is a good Rangers replacement? Would be my 4th, 5th midfielder alongside Caicedo. Already own 3 Arsenal, so no Rice, thank you. I still like Ndai, Ismail Assar, but yeah, Minter's not too shabby. Xhaka, the bastard, not too shabby either, but yeah, I'd probably say someone like Ndai or Sarr. Sarr's the preference. Bench Voltemada or Mukiele. I'd bench Mukiele. 40 points, Thiago say my game week. Yeah, not a bad score, and obviously Thiago did the business. Kluivert will be back on penalties now. The thing is, though, Kluivert wasn't on the pitch when Semenyo took it, so there is a chance that Kluivert would have taken it anyway, and he is a better penalty taker. I could say the triple captain for Haaland, West Ham at home in Gameweek 17. Yeah, I did go for your question, didn't I? Yeah, that looks good. You don't need to buy Mbeumo or force him in. So, as I mentioned before, wildcard in 13, you can triple captain Haaland against West Ham in 17, and I think that sorts things out there. Best goalkeeper on wildcard, Raya. Nothing's changed. I want to get rid of Gakpo next week, but not sure who to get. I have Sarr, Semenyo, Dewsbury Hall, and Bruno. 1 free transfer, 0.4 in the bank. What should I do? Yeah, awkward because Gakpo has great fixtures, but if he's not going to start, what's the point? So, yeah, I think Mbumo would be the preference, but you don't have enough money to get to him. So you might have to look at someone like Ndai. I think he's a better option than Gakpo. Right now, top 3 players each position, best performance for FPL. Goalkeepers, Raya, Riffs, and Vicario. But I just wouldn't be bringing in Vicario right now. And by the way, Pope is still 3rd in terms of FPL points scored amongst goalkeepers, but he has been awful for quite some time now. For defenders, I would say Gabriel, Timber, and a Palace defender like Gay or Munoz. And I think Gay will be available fairly soon. So that hasn't changed. In the midfield, the best performers, Mbumo, based on recent form, because he's still 4th in terms of FPL points scored amongst midfielders. But yeah, he would be in there. I'm going to say Rice and the other midfielders, probably Caicedo. Forwards, Haaland, Joao Pedro, and Igor Thiago. And that is basically a reflection on the highest point scorers in FPL. But of course, I changed things a little bit, especially when it comes to Nick Pope not in the top 3. I put Vicario instead, and I put Brian Mbumo in the top 3 midfielders. Yeah, Mustafa, I covered your question already, mate. No need to spam. Gets a bit boring. Can I buy Mbumo now and activate wildcard free it later and the transfer will cancel to not lose value? Well, if you free hit, yes, it will cancel the transfer. Yes, but in terms of the wildcard, you'll still have Mbumo there, or you will sell him to then get your wildcard team, depending on how you set things up. But yeah, it would only be cancelled if you free hit. Pep Roulette is so annoying. They are flying now and some great picks, but there is no guarantees ever too risky. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think with City, if you want that sort of guarantee for minutes, I think injuries need to happen. But right now, they've got most players available. The one player they can't afford to lose is Erling Haaland. Otherwise, they're out of the title race. Do wildcard 17 and play triple captain 13, says Ahmed. That's a different way of looking at it. I'm going to say the other way around, but it's up to Ahmed. Well, no, it's not up to Ahmed. It's up to Adsterboy what he does. What are your thoughts on Esteval as a player, not an FPL asset? Yeah, he's got potential, something about him. I think he's probably Chelsea's best winger, at least this season. Pedro Neto and Garnacho are too inconsistent. I would not be going there. But Esteval's minutes are all over the place. So, unfortunately, not really an FPL consideration. But as a player, he's probably Chelsea's second most exciting option, aside from Palmer. One transfer, Sarr or Mbumo? Mbumo. Yeah, I've got no Saka, but guess what? Last week, people were saying Saka should be sold, or they were asking me, who should I sell Saka to? I was telling people he should be held on to. Dylan, do you think Cunha's starting to get better? I mean, he really looks like a talismanic threat if Bruno sticks at number 8. I don't think he played particularly great against Tottenham, to be honest. And he's got 1 goal in like 17, 18 games now for club and country. So as good as people might say he's playing, and he had a decent start to the season, it's all about FPL points, and he's not getting them. Mbumo's by far the better option, and even Fernandes is considerably better. No, he's not going to join Argentina, but I'll be honest, if he, doesn't want to play friendlies or whatever it is, and I know they're pretty irrelevant anyway, and so be it. But I think he'll be available against Burnley, so I'm not too concerned with Enzo. If I had him, I'd be holding on to him and starting, and then wildcarding in 13, but for those that are wildcarding now, I wouldn't be bringing in Enzo Fernandez. That's just a 1-week punt for me. Saka captain was the best thing I've had all season so far. Other than that, feels like a real slow season at 2 million rank. Yeah, it's not a great rank, but it's fairly early on in the campaign, so that could easily change to top 1 million by the next couple of weeks when we get back from the international break, and then by the end of the year, you could be top 500k or even top 100k. There's still a long way to go in this season, but great captaincy there. Who to captain in 12? Unfortunately, Haaland will be near the top again, but you will see my Campsy list in future videos. Probably a wildcard squad or team selection, that's where I'll talk about it. The same goes for my clean sheet odds, and in the next deadline stream, you'll see my final versions of both of them. Who's the standout Liverpool attacker? Well, apart from Salah, I think the standout Liverpool attacker is probably TK, but I wouldn't be going there because Isak is also knocking on the door. Yeah, as covered already, Sander, it would be wildcard. Well, is this different then? Because I think before you said 13. I think wildcard is better in both situations, but if you've got both chips available, you could do something like wildcard 12, free at 13, but it just depends on your team. I don't know what your squad looks like, so it's impossible for me to say. Missed green arrow by 1 point. That is very frustrating. Then again, not trying to say something too boring or, how do I say this? Like a fake reassurance, but that's better than a massive red arrow. That's the worst feeling when you're like 30 points off a red arrow, 20. That's when things are proper bad. But yeah, it's a pretty underwhelming week in general. It is what it is. We move on. Bench one, please. Richards or Ndai. I'd bench Richards, but it is Wolves away, of course. Are we in the expectation world or reality world, hoping real life players do well in FPL? I'm not sure what you quite mean there, to be honest, but the problem with FPL this season is that the premiums aren't doing it on a consistent basis. Hopefully Saka, Palmer, Salah, etc. can rival Haaland, otherwise this will be a very boring game. Triple captain on Leeds or West Ham? I prefer Leeds, but they're both good. I mean, West Ham are still terrible defensively. Right now, yeah, covered. Anderson on the Dyche may be an option. Yeah, I'm not sure if he would be on penalties long term, but obviously he took the pen against Leeds quite well. Yeah, Gibbs White obviously took one on Thursday and missed it. I'm not quite sure if Gibbs White was still on the pitch. I'll have a look at that now. It's definitely worth considering. So let me have a look. I think Gibbs White was still on the pitch. Was he? Yeah, he was. He was subbed off at 88 minutes. So yeah, Elliot Anderson scored. Oh, it was after. It was a really late penalty, to be fair. So yeah, good question, and it's a great point to raise. Gibbs White wasn't on the pitch, but yeah, Elliot Anderson could be on pens for the foreseeable future. I disagree, Han Ponic. I think you need triple Chelsea, maybe a sneaky pun on Garnacho. I'm Argentinian. I've seen Garnacho countless times for United, and you know, for Argentina, he's very inconsistent. He played well against Wolves, but it's probably the worst team in the league. I think anyone can look good against them, so not for me. I'm quite happy to even roll and wildcard in 13. I've got Joao Pedro and Sanchez anyway. Others have no Chelsea coverage whatsoever, and they would be a bit nervous. But after that, it's Arsenal. And if you look at Arsenal's record against Chelsea recently, it's 7 wins out of 11. It wouldn't be a big surprise if it was 8 out of 12 after Gameweek 13. Isn't it beneficial to free it before wildcard? It just depends on your team situation. I don't know your squad. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here with my technology, but hopefully everything's running smoothly. Drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Our aim is to get to 38k on YouTube by the end of the month. So once I'm back from the international break and covering Matchday 5 for UCL Fantasy and Gameweek 12 for FPL, yes, there's going to be a lot of videos and live streams on a consistent basis, and everything you need to know will be covered for every single deadline. Yeah, I saw that, Ahmed. Yeah, exactly. Enzo Fernandez will not be with the Argentinian team, but yeah, he's quite frustrating sometimes for Argentina, by the way, but he's got a bit of credit in the bank. Yeah, Thiago obviously will get bonus points. Come on. I mean, he got a brace, and as covered earlier, I literally went through every single game talking about bonus points in DEFCON. Thiago got maximum bonus. The next FPL challenge, I'm not sure. I'll have a look very soon. Will you buy a Liverpool defender for the upcoming game week, or should I sell Van Dijk to free up money? Nah, if you have Van Dijk still, I'd probably keep him. He should have got a return today. I think the goal was... it probably should have stood, to be honest. So, yeah. I think with Liverpool, keep him. Well, what's happening here? Am I getting hacked or something? That's fucking weird. Yeah, so... Keep Van Dijk. In terms of my plans, not at the moment. I mean, there is definitely debate for me to do something like Timber to Van Dijk, but I've got 0.4 in the bank. Yeah, I could make that work. I'm not sure if it's really worth it, though. Maybe for 1 week. My plan is to wildcard in 12 or 13 anyway, but Van Dijk is the only Liverpool defender I'm looking at. My plan is probably in Gameweek 13, Joao Pedro to Thiago. Looks good. James to Van Dijk, yes. And maybe Gakpo to a mid, max 8.6 million. Yeah, but I'd still bring in Mbeumo because remember, we get 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16 anyway. So unless you feel like you're going to make a lot of transfers by then, or, you know, you're going to bench boost, then you've got other priorities. I'd still bring in Mbeumo, but there is Ismail Assar, who, to be honest, also goes to AFCON, so that's something else to consider. Enzo Fernandez is still decent. Caicedo, Declan Rice would be good. There aren't too many standouts in Dye. They're all on a quite similar level. I think Mbeumo on current form is a level above, but how long will that last? We'll wait and see. But Mbeumo is still the answer for me. Yeah, covered that. Should we consider a Villa attacker, though? That is something I didn't talk about. Probably not. Rodgers is still my favourite Villa attacker, but don't expect big horse from him. Probably just the odd assist and, 5 to 8 points on a somewhat regular basis. He was doing that up until the Liverpool game. But yeah, with Buendia, for example, he's the informed Villa attacker. Great free kick for today, although a bit of luck, of course, it deflected off the wall. But yeah, Liverpool attacker, the standout is Salah. If you can't afford him or want someone, more accessible, then Ekitike is probably the one, but just expect rotation between him and Isak, especially after the international break with a congested fixture schedule. Yeah, thank you, James. As he says, give it a like. It costs nothing, and it only takes a second or two, if that. In general, FPL points seem to be at an all-time low this season. It can seem like that sometimes, but it's weird because we've got DEFCON, which should obviously open up the doors for more returns and stuff. I think the main issue is that defenders have been so overpowered, whilst midfielders and forwards have been a bit underwhelming. There aren't really too many standouts here. Good point, Dylan. Cunha might be getting better, but not FPL perspective. Look, Cunha was brilliant last season, and I owned him in certain stages for Wolves, where he was the clear talisman. But for United, that's Brian Mbeumo from open play, and Bruno Fernandes when you also consider set pieces. And also Mbeumo is on free kicks, or should I say on corners. Yeah, I think with Cunha, we just haven't seen enough. One goal in 16, 17 games isn't good enough. It was a great goal against Brighton, by the way, but yeah, I'd rather go for the other two. Okay, I'm not even sure if I've gone through this again, but yeah, as mentioned before, what to do with Longstaff and if keep triple Arsenal defense or sell one. I'd consider selling Calafiori. You've got a lot of money in the defensive line, and yes, this is a season to go big at the back, but you could do Calafiori to a cheap defender or cheaper, like Marcus Senesi, and use that to upgrade other positions in the long term, like Longstaff. I think the main issue you've got in your team is you've got Guiu and Longstaff. I get it because midfielders and forwards haven't really been good enough, but I think there will be a slight change over the coming weeks after this international break, so I would definitely suggest upgrading one of those players. Maybe do Guiu to Thiago and something like Calafiori to a 4 million defender. That could work for you. But I will not lose a transfer in Gameweek 13 if I buy Mbeumo and then activate Wildcard. No, you won't lose a transfer. But is that really the only benefit you're looking at in terms of when to wildcard or free hit? I think there's a little bit more to it. Thank you, Stephen. Timothy says, poor week. Highlight Reinders didn't make a cameo, so got Anderson's 9 off the bench. Yeah, nice. You got to enjoy the luck when it comes your way. But I predicted City's 11 correctly for the first time this season, it seems. But I think a lot of people had that sort of perception and feeling that Pep Guardiola would go for that in his 1000th game as a manager. But yeah, City deserved to win the game. Liverpool were completely off the races. There were some poor decisions from the officials, which maybe cost Liverpool a little bit. But yeah, I think City were by far the better team. Best Gameweek to wildcard, if still unused. Gameweek 12 or 13. It's ultimately team dependent. If you've got 2 or 3 Chelsea players, I think Gameweek 13 is the answer. Should you buy Liverpool or City defender, and who? I'd still lean towards a Liverpool defender, even though City are a bit more solid defensively. You've got Donnarumma in goal. There is also O'Reilly and maybe Ruben Dias, who people have mentioned in this chat. But I think Van Dijk will get DEFCON quite regularly. You've also got the goal threat from set pieces. He should have had that goal stand today. So it would be Van Dijk for me. Do you think Virgil is currently a better pick than Timber? Only for the next 2-3 weeks maybe, but not longer term. Now, if you're tripling up on Arsenal defensively, that could be one option for you to consider, selling Timber to Van Dijk. Otherwise, I'm not really in a rush to do that sort of thing. For Bragan, Raya, Timber, Gabriel, Senesi, Munoz, Burns, Semenyo, Enzo, Mbeumo, Haaland, Kripke Jr., Mateta. Bench boost seems likely next week. Burn, best replacement from Liverpool, Chelsea, or another. With Chelsea, that's just a 1-week punt. So if you're wildcarding in 13, you could bring in a Chelsea player, but I think Van Dijk is the best one. You might want to consider O'Reilly or maybe Ruben Dias, but they're facing Newcastle away next, and I don't think City keep a clean sheet there. As for your squad, looking at the bench boost, Kripke Jr. didn't start today. It was Evanilson. Now, it could reverse in Gameweek 12, but yeah, just be mindful that Kripke Jr. might not start. So Liverpool would be the answer there. Arthur says 52 points all out with a 7-point bench boost. Yeah, I got 5 points last week, so I can't even laugh too much. 655 points, that's decent. Top 1 million. Underwhelming, but at least green arrow. Exactly that. And 52 points, I think, is a good score this week. Feel like the move is to stay patient right now and make moves, play wildcard in 13 after the break. I agree. Now, it is team dependent. I don't know which players you've got, but I think for many people, if you've got a double, triple up in Chelsea, Game Week 13 wildcard looks better. For those without any Chelsea coverage in Game Week 12, you might be more open to just playing the chip now. Dylan, any solutions? Mids and forwards, Minter, Salah, Foden, Semenyo, Thiago, Mateta, Haaland. I'd consider selling Foden to Mbumo or someone like Ismail Assar, Declan Rice. That could work fairly well. Those are three of my favourite midfielders in the game. The rest are definitely worth holding on to. 46 points, but with bench boost. Yeah, decent score. I'm guessing the bench was quite poor in general, but it is what it is, right? I also had a very underwhelming bench boost last week. Are Semenyo's performances a little drop? Well, look, even when he was doing really well, there were decent stats for the first 5 game weeks, but then there was like a clear overperformance. So I'm not surprised that he blanked a few times afterwards, but yeah, to miss a penalty against Villa, to get 1 assist in a free draw, and also get booked against Palace, to then blank in the following games against Nottingham Forest when Bournemouth win 2-0. Yeah, that's all very frustrating, and Semenyo is still the talisman for Bournemouth, but it has changed a little bit recently where the Cherries are spreading out the goals. Against Man City, Semenyo also blanked, so he has been very underwhelming, but he's still a good option. So whilst he was the clear standout midfielder after the first 5 to 7 game weeks, he is now nowhere near the top 5, but this can change very quickly with Bournemouth's upcoming fixtures, so I think he's worth holding on to. I'll talk about this in my transfer tips, but yeah, for those that don't have Semenyo, even if you're wildcarding now, I'm not so sure if I'd be bringing him in. So it's a very unique situation. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Yeah, give Dylan a like. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I appreciate the shout out. I've got a front three of Joao Pedro, Haaland, and Igor Thiago. Should I change? Not this week, no. I think that's a pretty good front line. But Joao Pedro to Mateta in Game Week 13 is probably what I'd recommend. Thank you very much to JFT Gunner, and hopefully Arsenal bounce back in those London derbies after the international break. FPL is a challenge to complete 60% of passes for 6 points. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not too shabby. I'll have a look at that now. Thank you for letting me know. Let's see. So yeah, next week it is called In Possession. So yeah, plus 6 points, as you say, for players who achieve 90% pass completion. Did you say 60 there? Yeah, I know what you meant there. It's fine. Thank you for that, Ellis. Something a little bit different. You can maybe see a bit of a preview of what I'm looking to build. But as for wildcards and stuff that people have asked about, I'm going to save that for a wildcard squad video, to be quite honest with you. Then I can give it more thought. We're also going to get more injury updates on players like Enzo Fernandez and stuff, which can be very useful. But yeah, in terms of goalkeepers here, this will be quite interesting. So let's get to 100 likes before the end of the stream, which should be within the next hour. It could even be earlier than that. But I'll answer the last couple of questions and comments, build a sort of provisional FPL challenge squad, refer to this in my team selection as I usually do. But yeah, the final squad will be talked about in my deadline stream in a couple of weeks' time. Speaking of which, the next deadline will be, yeah, on Saturday, the 22nd of November. So I'll be going live at 9 a.m. in the UK. That's what I usually do, 2 hours before the deadline. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the reaction stream. But at least on that Saturday, there is no game at 8 p.m. So a reaction stream on the Saturday is more likely there, actually. I'll let you know closer to the time. So probably within that deadline stream, you'll know when the reaction one will happen as well. And then for UCL Fantasy, once we approach that Tuesday deadline in the Champions League in late November, yes, I'll be covering the best limitless and wildcard squads and my team selection. But in terms of goalkeepers, I'm a bit conflicted about this. So yeah, let's just go for Haaland. I mean, he's just boring, isn't he? Let's go for Salah again against Forest. That could definitely change though. Mateta. Gabriel is still the best defender in the game, but I am considering something a little bit different. You know what? I'm going to go for Gabriel. Maybe Semenyo. Back him to bounce back, I should say. Not bouncing. I do like Mbumo, though, as well. Okay, you know what? Let's get rid of this dumb robot. Let's put Mbumo in. And let's change. The thing is, obviously, in terms of the actual challenge this week, it's not really, yeah, it's not going to help. Bruno Fernandes will be decent, but I don't think his pass success rate is good enough. I mean, someone like Rodri, for example, I know he's not going to start this game. He probably won't, but that's the sort of player you want to include in your team. So I think Arsenal and C players would be pretty decent. Like a Nico Gonzalez could be a decent punt. But yeah, in goal, I'm not too sure about these goalkeepers. I don't like the look of this. Okay, you know what? I'm going to get rid of Semenyo and go for a possession-based player. There's no Chelsea option as well, so I'll go for Sanchez. Yeah, it's a difficult one this week if you want to like hone in on that challenge. It's probably worth waiting a little bit and giving this more thought, but this is kind of a rough team. Even Gravenberch, for example, against Forest could be pretty decent. I would expect him to get 90% pass accuracy. So let's go for something, a bit left field, not what you'd normally see on this channel. So, yeah. Looking at the options, I'm still going to include Mbeumo and Mateta because I don't own them right now. Sanchez in goal, Gabriel, yeah, decent. And the last player could be a defender. Could go for a defender here. So, what? Okay, I have to bring someone in and then I can replace him. It's a bit annoying. Let's just put Colin, whatever, and do that. Change formation. Replace Colin. I just sold someone else, didn't I? Yeah, not surprised there. So yeah, this is a bit of a difficult one. Maybe it's a good challenge from that perspective because you have to think a bit outside the box. But in terms of defenders here, I'm a bit perplexed. Maybe Senesi. Why not? Let's go for Senesi. And because if not, I could go for Petrovic in goal and then just a Chelsea defender like Cucurella, someone who can get 90% pass accuracy. But it is a very weird sort of challenge. And I could do this as well. So yeah, just go for two midfielders. I do like Rice. Rice, Gabriel. Okay. I'm just going to do something like this then for the time being. Go for one at the back. Go for three midfielders. And the other option could still be Gravenberch. Why not? Something a bit woke, left field, whatever you want to say. And there we go. Very early FPL Challenge Squad. Expect changes. That's what I would say, because I might just go for the boring Salahs and Haalands of the world. Okay, so let's answer a few more questions and then wrap things up. I got 11.9 million in the bank, trying to spend it on two midfielders. Who would you recommend I buy? I already have Mbeumo, Saka, and Semenyo. 6.7. Yeah, so you could do something like Sarr and Xhaka. That's not too shabby. Just bear in mind that going into AFCON, you're going to be without Mbeumo and Sarr, but you get 5 free transfers in Gameweek 16 anyway. This could have been a great season if even half the premiums were performing like Salah, Wirtz, Isak, Palmer, Gyökeres, Joao Pedro, and even Bowen, and Watkins, Voltemada. It would be crazy. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Voltemada's been solid, but nothing like crazy, as you say. Isak's been an absolute flop so far, same with Wirtz. Salah's been completely underwhelming. Palmer's been injured. Gyökeres and Joao Pedro are very inconsistent. Even Saka, who's had his moments, not at his absolute best. And Watkins has been a shadow of his former self. Play Keane or Senesi? Senesi. I've got a front three of Joao Pedro, Haaland, Thiago. You don't need to change just yet. Sell Joao Pedro to Mateta in Gameweek 13 as covered earlier. Wolves the team to target. West Ham and Forest slowly back to the form. But West Ham still considered twice to Burnley. So I still think they're a team to target. FPL Challenge next week. Yep, thank you very much. In Gameweek 13, it's 1.1 plus point for every recovery. Yeah, so Caicedo's going to be in there, especially against Arsenal. Let's jinx the bastard. If Buendia stays fit, would he be nailed in that Villa team? If he plays at this level, then yes, but I don't think he is that consistent. So I think he'll start most games for Villa, but he's also a bit injury prone. He missed a game recently, and that's where Villa went for something a little bit different with Guessan and also McGinn on the left. And now with Buendia back, they can shift things around a little bit between Rodgers, McGinn, and Buendia. But yeah. Of course, this FPL manager inspired by Football Manager gameplay. Yeah, I'm not sure who else or who you're referring to there, especially with the timing of Football Manager release. Granit Xhaka has to be in your midfield FPL challenge. Yeah, maybe, just to jinx the twat. Got Raya, Munoz, Gabriel, Senesi, Saka, Sarr, Semenyo, Ndai, Mateta, Haaland, Joao Pedro. Feel like the team is strong. Mbeumo and Thiago are tempting, but I still want to assess the options. You know, another great option for FPL challenge, by the way, is Virgil van Dijk. I think that would be really good. Clean sheet potential. Liverpool will have most of the possession. Van Dijk will have a good chance of getting 85 to 90% accuracy. Obviously, you want 90 plus for the extra 6 points. But yeah, with this squad, yeah, I've got the same situation where Mbeumo and Thiago, as you mentioned before, they are two of the most appealing options to buy, but you don't need to like undo things like sell Joao Pedro now. I think the best time to do that would be Gameweek 13. And with both Mateta and Haaland, they are obviously holds in the long term. So you're quite good for Gameweek 12, in my opinion. Semenyo apparently will go back to old habits. Possibly. But Villa are a decent team. That is still considered a relatively tough fixture at Villa Park. George Corbett says, Raya, Gabriel, Munoz, Richards, Bruno, Semenyo, Sarr, Thiago, Haaland, Joao Pedro. What are your thoughts? That it's solid, that you don't need to make many transfers, if any, for this week. Now, you do have a double Palace defence, which I wouldn't sell against Wolves away, but I wouldn't expect that many clean sheets as opposed to Arsenal in the long term. So whilst Gabriel and Raya were quite disappointing against Sunderland, they are still worth holding on to. You could do something a bit sideways like Bruno to Mbeumo if you're in a strong position when it comes to free transfers, and if that also helps you with funds. But I'll be honest, I think this week just roll, and then maybe do Joao Pedro to Mateta in Gameweek 13. Spider2868 says Raya, Gabriel, Richards, Munoz, Szoboszlai, Gakpo, Bruno, Mbeumo, Joao Pedro, Haaland, Igor, Thiago. I'd sell Gakpo despite the upturn in form, or should I say in the upturn in fixtures. I think Liverpool will win a couple of these games, and Gakpo could start some of them, but I think Szoboszlai is already enough cover. Just bear in mind he's on 4 yellow cards, and for any player who's walking that suspension tightrope, if they get to 5 bookings before they have played their 19th Premier League game, they will serve a 1-game ban in the Premier League. And Szoboszlai, of course, is the biggest concern from that perspective. But Gakpo's more expensive. He's also a bigger priority sell, in my opinion. You could go to Ismaila Sarr, Declan Rice, and all the midfielders I've discussed in my videos. Native Faith says Pope and Eze to Alisson and Fernandes, or Saka and Eze to Salah and Minter. If I had to pick, it's probably Alisson and Fernandes, but I don't like Alisson in FPL. He's too injury prone. Who's to say he's going to stay fit until the end of the season? Even Nick Pope is a bit like this, but I think Alisson's even worse. He just gets injured far too often for a goalkeeper. Ahmed says Dylan Ivanilson, FPL Challenge 131, Ivanilson up front. I'm not so sure about that, to be honest. I mean, yeah, West Ham are terrible defensively, but I think Ivanilson could still have his minutes reduced with Krupi Jr. knocking on the door. Why all the Joao Pedro hate? I know he blanked, but he's in the top 10 for FPL points. Only 1 less than Mbeumo. I'm not sure what you're referring to. In terms of what I'm saying here, yes, he's second for FPL points amongst forwards, and I've reminded people constantly about this because if you saw my last couple of streams, people keep saying, oh, should I sell Joao Pedro to this? I'm going to sell Joao Pedro. Who do I buy? And I said, I still think he's worth keeping against Wolves and Burnley, so nothing's changed. In my opinion, against Burnley away, you keep him. If you're looking for a 1-week punt, you could buy him. But after that, against Arsenal and fixtures like that, with his inconsistency, I mean, I think Mateta's better, if I'm being completely honest. But I understand where you're coming from. But in terms of the way I've presented things, I've been quite consistent about Joao Pedro all season. I don't think he's a bum. I don't think he's amazing. He's somewhere in between. He's got potential. He's inconsistent, but he's still second for points scored amongst forwards. But Igor, Thiago and Mateta have shown better form in the last month or so. My FPL Challenge team is Roofs, Cucurella, Bruno, Foden, Sarr, Ivanilson. I'm not sure about that. I think Fulham will score, but let's wait and see. Sunderland are currently the better team right now. Foden's interesting, but you are really going for that 90% thing, which makes sense, of course. That is FPL Challenge now. Is Pope's sub off injury-related or tactical sub? No, injury-related, I'm pretty sure. Subbing out a goalkeeper is, very uncommon to say the least. And that's what I mean about Pope. He gets injured way too often for a goalkeeper. Ramsdale has done well in his absence. We saw that in the Carabao Cup against Tottenham, when Newcastle won 2-0. So, yeah, I think that's something to monitor. But for those of Pope, we've got an international break. We'll see if he's available for Game Week 12, but he has been quite poor in recent games as well. And some Newcastle fans want Ramsdale to start. Hi, Dylan. Just joined. I have exams right now. I missed the start. How are you doing? Yeah, good luck with your exams. Things are going well. I am wrapping up soon, though, as covered before. I'm not sure if Pope is injured for a significant time. I mean, the game just ended a couple of hours ago. I haven't seen Eddie Howe's comments yet, but I'll have a look in a jiffy. I should just say now. That's what I'm doing. So, Nick Pope. Let's see if we got an update. Yeah, it was a concussion injury. So yeah, he should be okay for Game Week 12. Yeah, so it was a concussion injury. So not a long-term problem. Yeah. So yeah, it's important to clarify that. Night, Dylan. Need to shoot. Enjoy your break, buddy. Thank you, James. I mean, usually in international breaks, I'm still making content, but yeah, like the last one, I'll probably take a few days off at least and then get back to it at full flow. But even when I'm taking a break, I'm still making the graphics and, you know, preparing stuff for when I'm back. So yeah, I'm still going to be working behind the scenes. You think Chelsea can keep a clean sheet away to Burnley? Yeah, they definitely can. Will they? I can't guarantee it because Chelsea are inconsistently defensively, and also Burnley are better than Wolves, albeit they only beat Wolves at the death a few weeks ago when Vitor Pereira was still there. But yeah, I think Chelsea can definitely keep a clean sheet. My current prediction is probably going to be 3-1, which I said for this week, and it was ultimately 3-0. But yeah, it's certainly possible. 2-0 wouldn't be out of the question. I'll show you my scoreline predictions in over a week's time. What's the best way to fit Salah and Haaland into your team? By going for cheap players like Reinildo Mandava, or I think Michele would be slightly better at 4.2. But of course, every little will help to fund Salah and Haaland. But it may be 2 4 million defenders, which I'm not a big fan of. To be honest with you, I think in this situation, you could go for a cheap midfielder like Xhaka and also a Mark Guiu or Krupi Jr. up front. I don't like it personally, but that is the best way to afford Salah and Haaland. Thoughts on Igor Thiago for Game Week 12? I just like Thiago in general. The only fixture where I don't like him on paper is against Arsenal, but he could still score at the Emirates. So yeah, Thiago is fixture proof. He's on penalties, and whenever he's at home, I'd back him to score in most matches. So he's a good asset. I've got Pope, Gabriel, Richards, Van der Ven, Enzo Fernandez, Mbumo, Rice, Semenyo, Caicedo, Sarr, Mateta, Haaland, Voltemada. What do you think? Yeah, a lot of these teams are quite similar, to be honest. I'm seeing 1 or 2 Palace defenders, maybe double Arsenal defence. Your team's a bit different from that perspective. I think Van der Ven is still sellable over the coming weeks. You've got Enzo. Yeah, he's worth keeping, I think. Keep an eye out for the injury situation. I'll also cover it on this channel with my future videos, but most of your players are worth keeping, but I think Van der Ven is the clear sell. Nick Pope was subbed off due to a concussion. He will be available for Game Week 12, but it is against Man City after all. If you have Dubravka as well, I'd be tempted to start Dubravka actually. I asked earlier about Gakpo, but do you think it might be wise to go Gakpo to Gravenberch to free up funds for another transfer later on? To be fair, Gravenberch has been decent in FPL this season, especially for his price tag, but you're not going to get the consistency from him when it comes to goal contributions. He is a defensive midfielder after all. I've said the same about Zubimendi, albeit Gravenberch has been better when it comes to goals. I wouldn't be completely against it. He can also score Defcon sometimes, but Jacques is better. You've also got Ndai, Sarr. I do recognise those 2 players are more expensive, but you've also got Minter. So Gravenberch isn't my favourite at that price tag and below. You've also got Caicedo at 6 million, but yeah, good option. And it also means you've got Liverpool coverage for their promising fixtures. Yeah, Wolves just appointed Rob Edwards. He does have history with Wolves, so I'm not completely surprised by that. Middlesbrough fans upset Rob Edwards goes to Wolves since the team is second in the Championship. It is a shame, but we'll see how these things can pan out, right? Maybe their new manager just continues on, they get promoted. But yeah, I think looking on it now, if I had to predict, without knowing much about the Championship at the moment, I'd say Middlesbrough will go to the playoffs, and then we'll see if they make the final cut. Raya or Sanchez for Game Week 12? This will be one of the rare cases where I'll say Sanchez. He has a better chance of a clean sheet on paper. Who do you think will be good in the long run over the Christmas period? Yeah, great question. I think Declan Rice, Saka, Gabriel, Timber. So I'm not saying go for all of these players, by the way. And with Arsenal, you can only get 3, of course. But yeah, I think 2 or 3 of those Arsenal players will do the trick. I would say Palace, and they are top of the FDR, or they were, from game weeks 11 to 17. That does change very quickly. But yeah, I still like Munoz and all their defenders. Gay should be back for game week 12, 13. I think he'll make the next match. Munoz, Sarr, Mateta. So yeah, those players would definitely spring to mind from Arsenal and Palace. Even a Joao Pedro could be decent hold, over that after the international break. Igor Thiago. Yeah, I think those would spring to mind. Virgil van Dijk, albeit 5.9 million for a defender who doesn't keep that many clean sheets, is a bit of a concern. Yeah, with Semenyo, he could drop in price. I mean, he's gone up so many times now. It's probably inevitable he'll go down to 8 million at some stage. But the problem with Semenyo is terrible form, but great fixtures. And against West Ham at home, I wouldn't want to sell any attacker. They just shipped in 2 against Burnley. So I think Semenyo's a hold. Josh says, is 58 points good? Yes, it is. It also depends on your rank, but I think in most cases, that's a green arrow. I had Sanchez, Richards, Wan-Bissaka, Timber, Caicedo, Sakin, Dai, Sarr, Haaland, Pedro, Voltemada. From those players, the worst of them is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I would still sell him if possible. And in the coming weeks, whether you wildcard or not, I'm not a big fan of goalkeeper transfers, but getting Raya for Sanchez is still my recommendation. From nobody picked last season to slow down transfer for Thiago, well, he had an ACL injury and missed a lot of football, so I think it made sense for people to go against it. Dylan, Timber to a lower defense and upgrade Foden to Saka. Yeah, I'm not completely against that. If you have a triple up in Arsenal defensively, then I would say yes. If you've got only 1 or 2, I'm not entirely sure because I still think Arsenal have by far the best defense in the league. So just depends on the context of your team, if you've got a triple up defensively or not. But on paper, I do like it. I think Saka is considerably better than Foden. Hey, Dylan, I have 2 free transfers right now. If I use a free hit next week, will I have 3 free transfers? No, you'll still have 2. The same goes for the wildcard. Will Wilson be the first choice striker? Well, he has been for the last couple of weeks, and Fulkrug has had a lot of injury problems, but he could be available after the international break, as talked about or discussed by Nuno Espirito Santo in his recent press conferences. I was going to do a -4, Kelleher and Voltemada to Burnley keeper and Mateta. Well, that's what I mean. A hit involving a goalkeeper rarely pays off. It might in the long term, but not with immediate, rank rises and also points gained. What do you think the score will be for the Palace game? Well, you will see all my scoreline predictions in over a week's time and a lot of different graphics like clean sheet odds and top 10 captains. But for the Palace game, that's a good question. I'm going to say 2-0 Palace right now. Is that Coventry City? Comfortable in top place of the Championship? Yeah, Frank Lampard's doing a great job. Sell Semenyo or Rice? Neither. I wouldn't sell Semenyo against West Ham. If I had to pick, I just don't like it. I think Rice is a great option long term, so I'm going to stick with my guns and say neither. I think Soucek will start to be a striker in no time. Well, he's got an eye for goal, and he was also involved in the 3rd goal. He scored, of course, did his helicopter celebration, but yeah, I think from West Ham, just avoid them still until we see consistency. Even Jarrod Bowen, as good as he is, hasn't been a good enough FPL option this season. What do you think people should do when Cole Palmer's fit again? Is it worth making room for him or not? Well, he's going to be eased back into things, and Chelsea have a congested fixture schedule, just like any team participating in Europe, particularly in the Champions League, where, I've said this before with Chelsea, last season they could rotate until the semi-finals of the Conference League. They cannot do that in the Champions League unless they want to get knocked out. And I think with Palmer, his minutes will be managed. So I think leaving a spot open in terms of funds or having that sort of player at a similar price tag is a good, recommendation and advice. So having a Saka, Fernandes, or Mbeumo is quite, worth it, because you can also get FPL points consistently from these players. But yeah, I wouldn't be in a rush to bring in Cole Palmer. The fixtures aren't great as well after Burnley away. Fulkrug really needs to leave West Ham in January, or really wants to leave. Well, it just hasn't gone right for him. He had a decent Euros. He's a solid striker, but at West Ham he has been a poor signing overall. So at the moment I'm captaining Haaland, 1 to either jinx him or he gets points, so either way I'll be happy with the outcome. But also, the kind of main thing I've been talking about in my streams is the lack of alternatives in terms of sheer consistency we're talking about Haaland-esque, scoring in virtually every single game and having a high ceiling. We're not really seeing it from the others yet, but maybe with Cole Palmer returning, with Saka getting into a bit of a groove at times, scoring against Slavia Prague and Sunderland. You've also got Salah, who's got great fixtures. Maybe we'll see a change after the international break, and I hope so for the sake of FPL. Okay, so I'm going to cover a few more questions and then wrap things up. Joao Pedro, the amazing bum. Yeah, look, I don't think he's a bum. I think he's a decent player, but he's not a great goal scorer. And against Burnley away, you definitely don't sell him. If you're looking to wildcard soon, if possible, I'd say Gameweek 13, because you can then double or triple up on Chelsea against Burnley away. Should I keep Saka and Bruno? I'd say so, but it just depends really, because Mbeumo is looking really good right now. If you can bring in Mbeumo for free, then that would be obviously a recommendation. But of course, he's going off to AFCON in Gameweek 16. He's very template now, so Saka and Bruno would be bigger differentials overall. Currently, I have Haaland captain, considering switching to Saka for Gameweek 12. Well, Saka's got a decent record against Tottenham. He's also got a few big returns against them in home North London derbies. And the thing is, Spurs, as bad as they have been this season at times, they are still top of the league in away matches. And I think Thomas Frank will set up very negatively and defensively against Arsenal. Maybe the back five, that's a possibility. But yeah, Spurs will, have a deep block, maybe a mid block, which is something we haven't seen under Ange Postecoglou too often. So yeah, Arsenal do struggle at times to break down teams with that sort of structure from open play, but they did fairly well against Sunderland, all things considered, and they should have won the game. But yeah, Saka will be my top 5 captaincy options, I believe. Mbeumo as well, but so will Erling Haaland. Is there a specific game week where you would triple captain someone? Well, the double game weeks and the blanks will happen after game week 30. So I covered this in my chip strategy guide. Watch it, it's on the channel still. And you will see it sometimes in the end cards at the end of my streams and videos. But yeah, Game Week 13 on Erling Haaland against Leeds at home. It's a single game week though. We probably won't get any doubles or blanks in the first half of the campaign unless the Premier League do move the Crystal Palace Leeds game to facilitate more rest and stuff for the Arsenal Palace game in the Carabao Cup. But I don't see that happening just yet. Thinking of getting Cunha instead of Mbeumo. How are the underlying numbers looking? Well, I did cover Mbeumo's underlying numbers in the deadline stream and today, and I compared them to Bruno Fernandes, but I could just bring up Cunha's stats now, since you asked that question. But yeah, there is a massive difference in their numbers. So you might think Mbeumo's been the best United asset, and now the tide will change with Cunha, who obviously was very impressive last season, but there isn't really a single reason for me to advocate for Matheus Cunha. Even creativity, Mbeumo does lead with XA, with big chance created, key passes, every single stat, Mbeumo is better. Now, he has played more minutes as well, and with the penalty order, after Bruno Fernandes, I think Mbeumo is next in line to take pens, then Cunha in third, but Fernandes is a 90-minute man, so essentially, we're only going to see these players take penalties if Bruno Fernandes gifts them, a spot kick like he did in the past with Rashford, for example. But yeah, Mbeumo is clearly the better FPL asset. Joao Pedro is still the same as last season. Managers got higher expectations, nothing else. The thing is, though, with Joao Pedro, I think he had a lot of hype from the Club World Cup. And let's not forget, last season he scored a lot of penalties, and I did say this a lot of times, and there's a big difference in price. He started last season at 5.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. He's now, he's at 7.5 again. So I think there's a few reasons why. He's playing for a bigger club. He's more expensive. He had a great Club World Cup. I think all of this plays a big part. Are there any people you would avoid having over Christmas? Yeah, interesting one. I mean, there is an argument to say that Palace players could be avoided as we approach late December and Christmas because of their really intense schedule. We could see more rotation like we saw today. Obviously, Gay couldn't walk and he was on crutches, so that's why Canvot came in and he did fairly well in his absence. They also made a few other changes like Yeremi Bino on the bench and Kamada as the left inside forward. But yeah, I think the main kind of avoids in Christmas is going to be the AFCON players, which is a very simple answer. But Brian Mbeumo, Kudus, I think Kudus would be one of the main ones, really. But after game week 16, Spurs do have some good fixtures on paper. Well, once again, though, with any Ghanaian player like Kudus and Semenyo, they aren't going to go to AFCON because they didn't qualify. So, yeah, It's a good question. I think this would require more thought, and I'll try to cover this in my upcoming videos because I can break it down and really think about the bigger picture and the long term and identified the players we shouldn't go for. But yeah, Cody Gakpo would be one. Maybe Ekitike and Isak because of the constant rotation there. I mean, Florian Wirtz goes without saying. I think the Liverpool players I would look at are Salah. Szoboszlai is obviously a suspension risk, but still decent. Virgil van Dijk is good, but a bit overpriced for what Liverpool are offering right now. Joao Pedro or Mateta. For Game Week 12, is Joao Pedro. Long term, I'm going to stick with the same answer I've said for the last couple of streams. Jean-Philippe Mateta has better stats and will score more goals over the next month or two. What's happening for Liverpool? Player performances or tactics going wrong? Well, I think Arne Slot needs to adapt more. His press conferences do give away a lot of the problems in a way. I mean, he kind of openly admits certain things Liverpool struggle with set pieces and, you know, long balls and stuff, and not being prepared for certain situations. And yeah, I think Arne Slot has been the biggest, you know, problem this season. As good as he was in the last campaign, he kept things simple and he took over Jurgen Klopp's team and, you know, got the best out of Salah and key players. I think this season it's the opposite, and he's struggling to bed in these new signings. What happened to Gay? Yeah, I literally just covered this a few times in the stream. So he was on crutches, he couldn't walk. I think he felt something. He took like a whack at the end of the Conference League game on Thursday, but and I think it was a 3-1 win against AZ Alkmaar. But yeah, Gay should be available for Game Week 12. He probably won't play for England, and Oliver Glasner was kind of suggesting that in his press conference, but it's not a long-term issue. Yeah, I'm not even sure what comments I've got here. It's probably a sign that we should wrap things up because I'm just seeing some crazy things being said. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit that notification bell so you're always up to date on my content, both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Let's get this stream to over 100 likes, and also for those watching on the playback, let's get them to even bigger numbers like 150 and close in on new goals like 38k subscribers on YouTube. Follow me on X, Instagram, your Patreon, all that good stuff. I probably just said it now, but it's been a long week and a long day. But I will be having a short vacation, and once I'm back, there's going to be a lot of content headed your way. The Game Week 12 in FPL, the transfer tips where I'll highlight 11 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip, a team selection. There could also be like a few other bits and bobs like my transfer plans, so we can see how things evolve over time. But the Wildcard squad will definitely be published at some stage, so keep your eyes peeled for that. The same goes for UCL Fantasy with Limitless and Wildcard teams, my team selection, and another deadline stream that will be in late November. But as for the next live stream, that will be on the 22nd, and that will be another early Saturday UK time deadline as usual. And with the reaction, we'll see, but it could be on the same day, if not on the Sunday. I'll keep you posted closer to the time. Let's also build other social media platforms like my Discord server. Be sure to join, and you get all the updates for FPL and UCL Fantasy. And also leave a 5-star review on my Spotify. It really helps me out on the channel, and it grows the audience on other platforms. Go on the vacation, get some massage in a spa. I'm not doing that. I'm actually going... well, to a place with similar weather to where I am now, but it should be fun. I had a great time last time out. I have Gordon and Esteval. Need to buy in Bumo. Who is the best cheap enabler you recommend? Yeah, it depends on how cheap we're talking, but Xhaka at 5.1 is okay. You've also got Gravenberch isn't too shabby. I'm not completely against him, but just don't expect too many goal contributions from him. I would look at Caicedo, Indai, Sarr. Just bear in mind with these African players, except Ghanaians, because they haven't qualified for the African Cup of Nations. Yeah, Sarr and Mbeumo, for example, they'll be good for the next couple on paper, but they will be sells by Game Week 16 to 18, where we get 5 free transfers, of course, with FPL this season. But if possible, I'd say Ismaila Sarr or Declan Rice. Otherwise, just go pretty cheap with Granit Xhaka. Thank you, Ahmed. You're a great guy, Dylan. Genuine man. Honestly, your stream is awesome as always. Thank you very much. And as you say, take care, everyone. That is a great way to wrap up the stream. Thank you, Ahmed, and to everyone else watching. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content. Take care, enjoy the football, and can we enjoy the international break? We'll find out, but all we can do is try our very best. See you soon.